What is going on, everybody? It is episode 268 of Pop Culture Crisis. Merry early Christmas, by the way. My name is Brett. I am here with my guest host, filling in for the day. Would you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Hannah Claire Brumlow. I'm a writer for timcast.com, and I am a substitution for your regular co-host.
Yes.
Hey, I have a complaint before we start.
Go for it.
Brett lured me up here by saying we could do a Christmas background. And as you'll notice, it's beautiful, but it's not Christmas. So please complain to Brett. He is trying to be a Grinch and get out of Christmas cheer, which I don't appreciate.
Look, okay, I will admit that I am I'm not an interior designer. It took long enough for me to develop the backgrounds back here. I'm like, actually at one point I went downstairs. I looked at some like wreaths and like stuff.
You did?
And I'm like, I don't know how to do this right.
Brett's like, who do you think I am, Martha Stewart?
Exactly. Who am I? I am not the male version. Is there a male version of Martha Stewart? Does that exist?
There are probably some serious male decorators, but I can't say I know any off the top of my head.
The Property Brothers, does that count?
Ralph Lauren, which is fashion, he does a lot of Christmassy stuff because he's all the plaid, but I wouldn't say he's the interior designer. Anyways, shame Brett in the comments, please, because that's important to me.
It is my fault, guys. So we got a bunch of stuff to talk about today. We've got Spider-Man news. We are going to get into that right at the beginning. We're just going to fly by that. I want to make a couple of announcements. We're going to talk about the fact that Avatar: The Way of Water has already surpassed Black Adam's entire box office run in less than a week. We're going to talk about ageism in Hollywood in relation to Michelle Yeoh, the star of Everything Everywhere All at Once, which I finally got right. For a long time, I kept, getting that name wrong every time we would do that. We're going to talk about, Hugh Jackman has his own opinions on whether we need gender-neutral awards. And let's face it, guys, anytime I see anything about award shows, I make sure Hannah Claire is there for that. There's also some people saying that the Batman got snubbed at the award shows, which means that's how far we've come, where it used to be that popcorn movies were not seen as any type of Oscar contender. Now they're saying that they got snubbed. So we will get into that. We are also going to talk about Sean Penn being a perfectly awful human being. He really is perfectly awful. And we're going to talk about him and then how he contrasts with Tim Robbins, who's kind of he's another actor who's come to his own awakening in regards to COVID vaccines. We're not political, but we love actors and scummy actors and actors that have come forward and admitted they were wrong. We will discuss that. We're also going to talk about Netflix. This is it's like a crime and punishment segment where it's like Netflix, you could go to jail, or now these movie studios could get fined for false advertising. So we will get into that as well. Are you ready, Hannah Claire?
I'm ready.
She's ready. All right, guys. So we're going to get into it first. This isn't like a big piece of news, but I do want to just fly by this. So Spider-Man 4 is definitely happening, and this has been confirmed by Sony Pictures. So Tim Rothman, who is the CEO of Sony Pictures, basically said, yes, they are doing Spider-Man 4. And from what I see here is that they've signed Tom Holland. I know how much you love sequels. I know how much you love sequels.
I just love them. They are what I think the best. In fact, I prefer to skip the first movie and watch, the third, fourth, fifth.
Not even the second.
I feel no. I don't know if you know this about movies, but the more sequels you have, the better they get.
Yes.
Plot lines get stronger
I've
and
heard
things
that.
make more and more sense.
Did you watch a Fast and Furious movie?
No. To be fair, I didn't think I was going to be on.
That is true. That is true. That's fair enough.
I owe you guys one.
You owe them two, actually, by now, I think.
Yeah. Well, it's starting to get into the territory where if I don't watch them, I'm going to have to go to that one in theater. And I don't know if I can do that.
Yep.
So Tom Holland, I've seen whatever the most
You went with
recent,
us to No Way Home.
Yes. And I had never seen any of the other ones. Tom Holland is great. He does a good job. He seems like, a nice, popular.
He's a perfectly likable,
Right.
As far as what you would consider an action star today, he's still kind of tiny, compared to your, he's not a Sylvester Stallone or an Arnold or an Arnie, right? But he's what him and Chris Pratt are what passed for action stars these days.
Yeah.
He's signed on for 3 more movies, meaning that another trilogy, and then another 3 additional appearances, meaning that he's going to have an appearance in Daredevil Born Again, the series starring Charlie Cox. And then he's also probably, this is a guess on their part, probably going to appear in Avengers Kang Dynasty and Avengers Secret Wars. So more sequels.
I just don't get this. why do we have to have, and if you look at me and say it's because they make money, I will riot.
It's because they make money.
Stop. I get that they make money, but like to a certain extent, what is the purpose? In some ways, like if you were Tom Holland, you're making a lot of money doing the movies, but wouldn't it also be helpful to like transition this into like, at what point do they just become like mini series on Netflix, right? Like we're doing all these sequels. It would probably make more sense eventually to just be like, we have 2 or 3 movies, and now if we want to keep this character around, like it's got its own.
I mean, that's what they did with Robert Downey Jr. He did his trilogy of Iron Man movies, and then he became basically a utility infielder whose name recognition and the popularity of Iron Man was used to bolster other films. Actually, he was used to bolster Tom Holland in the original Spider-Man movie.
Yeah.
They brought him in. So, I mean, Spider-Man is, if we're talking cream of the crop, if Batman is DC's moneymaker, then Spider-Man is Marvel's biggest character. So it's honestly, it does them a disservice to put him on TV.
Right. And I get that apparently I'm the only one who's like, look, now 4 movies is too many. And he's young, right? So
6 is a lot. Like I can't think of somebody who's gotten 2 trilogies. Like 2 trilogies worth of movies out of the same character. I don't know if that's happened.
Right, and I have to believe that.
How many Bond movies did Daniel Craig make? 5, I think.
5.
I think 5. So I mean, pretty close.
Yeah. Well, I have to think with Tom Holland, part of it is that he's charming. His character is young, right? In No Way Home, they're like getting into college, so there is a lot of time left to tell the story and what is it like to become the adult.
Yeah, he's young.
Well, and also he's dating his co-star Zendaya, right? So people like them as a couple, and they're notoriously private. So in some ways,
just bought a house together or something.
That's the rumor. They're always rumored to be engaged, but they're both like, I don't know, 23, 24, 25, something like that.
I think he's 26 now. He's
ancient.
but she's taller than him, so he's a short king.
He is. But like what I mean is people get this glimpse into their relationship by watching the movie. So I could see in some ways, I mean, not actually, we don't know what they're like, but you get to see them hold hands and say they're a couple, even if it's nothing like their actual personalities. I could understand where they want to capitalize on the sort of double-fired hype of this movie.
Yeah.
I
maybe
don't
he'll
know.
appear on Euphoria.
I've heard that he did. I heard that there's like there's like a rumor that he asked to do it, and like there's a shot of like the high school crowd like in an auditorium, and someone like zoomed in on it and circled and was like, it looks like Tom Holland. Like he just did like an extra role. But
they did that with Matthew Lillard appeared in Scream 2 at a party, even though he was the bad guy in Scream 1.
Wait, is Matthew Lillard the guy who played Scooby-Doo?
Yes.
Or like Shaggy?
Yeah, Shaggy.
That guy's amazing.
Yeah, he is.
I mean, he's in, is it called Serial Mom? That
he was in The Bridge. He's a really good dramatic actor. You just don't see like he was in SLC Punk. Everyone remembers him from SLC Punk, but he was a really good dramatic actor, but they threw him in to Scream 2 like in like an extra scene.
Yeah.
Also people are mentioning obviously Hugh Jackman played the same character for like 20 years, but like was there 6 individual Wolverine movies?
Like
but
if you want, I don't know, no one cares about my opinion on this, but like why do these work? I just don't get it. I mean, in some ways I guess it's just like every year a new Spider-Man movie will come out, and so we'll go.
Well, this is now going to be the first year since 2017 where there won't be one every other year. And
people are sad about this.
Yes, they're upset.
They are upset.
Well, he like I said, that character transcends like movies. Like Spider-Man has been a part of pop culture. Like I talk a lot about how do these companies make their money if they're not making their money off the movies. There's no one that moves more merch than Spider-Man.
Yeah, and it's been around forever. Even I think of like
long before
like little kids' T-shirts, right? Like they're still selling Spider-Man logos. So let me ask you a question. Tom Holland's going to do 4 where it's there, you know, they're gonna bump it up to 10 Spider-Man movies. Do you think that
6 Spider-Man movies.
100? Do you think that they're also able to do like what I remember is Spider-Man being an animated series that was like part of Saturday morning cartoons? Do they still release that kind of Spider-Man content, or is it sort of locked down while these big movie studios?
I don't know if maybe the chat knows if there's a Spider-Man animated series right now. I mean, we have Miles Morales. The Miles Morales version of Spider-Man has the animated movies, meaning that those are the Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse, based on the Miles Morales alternate version of that character. One of the rare examples where even people that normally don't like race swapping tend to like Miles Morales as that character. But in general, like Spider-Man makes so much money because he translates relates well to adults and children, meaning that there's a really funny Instagrammer named Kayla Sullivan that does these videos. She's like a mom, and she does all her videos as if she's giving news reports, and she's got her son is always with her in these videos, and he won't wear anything but Spider-Man clothes. Like that just proves to you that even in the year 2022, a little kid still just wants to be Spider-Man.
It's interesting to me in some ways that like, if we're looking at the context of things that like are so universally beloved that children know about them, even though like you're not taking your 5-year-old to see Tom Holland's Spider-Man movie, like it's just too hard. But the same thing doesn't really happen with like the Disney princess thing, right? Like you could have like a 5-year-old boy and he's obsessed with Spider-Man, and they're still producing Spider-Man content for adults. But with the Disney stuff, it's like you could have, you know, a girl who's obsessed with Little Mermaid, but when they try to make the live action Little Mermaid, it doesn't get the same kind of fan, you know, it can really only be the classic first one, whereas Spider-Man has had so many iterations, and to a certain point, people love, you know, the cartoons, they love the Tobey Maguire, like, why doesn't it work the opposite ways? Because superhero content is more relatable? Does it like transcend time?
Probably just because it speaks to both the grown man still wants to be a superhero, just like the little boy does. A little girl maybe gets beat down by the real world and realizes being a princess isn't the thing.
Feminism.
I just saw this the other day. I didn't even put this up there today. This was surprising stat that says from the Disney earnings call, 50% of Disney Plus subscribers are adults without children.
How many of them are men without children?
That is a very good question. You would have to ask them. But I'm just saying, like, that kind of speaks to what you're talking about, right? Like it's like what it is like it probably is now adult women who want to pretend like they can still be or like hope that they can one day be the princesses. I think the men fall into it more because of the story. I think that they love the character of Spider-Man more than they fall in love with just the idea that they can be a superhero.
Right, and are some of the like...
And the comics have deep lore.
Yeah, the comics are...
Peter Parker has decades and decades of lore.
Right, and the themes of like fighting crime, justice, evil, whatever, those last and are something that become something you're more aware of. Like, are the themes in Spider-Man movies and superhero movies something that you grew up with and grapple more with as an adult, whereas like things that are geared towards girls are something that you kind of deal with in childhood and then you leave behind?
It's funny, because I mention this all the time. If you watch Batman, the animated series now, it is extremely like poignant to adults. Most of the first season is about like business corruption. Like it's like it's like, I mean, he's still taking on Man-Bat, like a huge like human bat, but but most of it has to do with like, how does he become Man-Bat? Well, a corrupt business, and like there's a lot of that in those stories, and like I feel like those are stories that like as they can transcend youth. And they can include, like, there's a lot of talk about, like, how you can incorporate adult themes into kids' entertainment or kids' themes into adult entertainment, meaning, like, Batman transcends it because he's fighting crime, but it's also the loss of a parent, the loss of a loved one. Those are themes that transcend youth all the way into adulthood.
Yeah, for sure.
The idea of the Disney princess might have those themes buried more deeply, but they don't really, you know, like you said, women get beat, I feel like do get beat down by the real world, though I do believe in a lot of ways we've kind of poison the culture by telling women that you have to not settle for less. And that you're going to be, you have to.
Well, it seems like with women, it's like they need to market the messaging. Like for a lot of girls, it's like, you can do it. You don't need to rely on anyone. Like you're powerful or whatever. And they need to get those messages in early because at a certain point, like you kind of reach the level of life where maybe you have settled in whatever you're doing or you've partnered or whatever else. With the superhero comics, I think in some ways you're totally right. The messages about like, pushing back against corruption or whatever else, like they become more pressing, and especially if you are an adult who is frustrated with things, like you see your own world reflected there. Like the messages age better, and so maybe that's why you can have, you know, a 4, 5, 6 Spider-Man movie, but you can't do the same thing with. I guess they try with like Black Widow. Is that a female?
We'll even think about like the Dark Knight, the Dark Knight Returns comic series. Comics at a certain point became for adults is more than they were for kids in a lot of ways. Like
yeah.
the storytelling evolved to be something that was for adults because adults grew with it. And me and Mary would actually discuss this. She's like, who is the audience for this? I said, the problem is they're going for a phantom audience now. In this case, they're going for the phantom audience of like Gen Z identity politics people.
Yeah.
But what it is they have a built-in audience. It's funny too because they're pushing it away, but there's a built-in audience of 50-year-old nerds who have disposable income that they don't want.
I think that's the biggest thing. They have disposable income, so therefore they're valuable.
Yeah, but they see it as it'll die out eventually. But
Yeah.
you're gonna get 30 more years out of those.
True,
people.
and I would think that actually, with the rise of what's like anime and just generally and I would say it couples with the rise of like video platforms and Instagram. Like we are a much more visual society than we were.
Absolutely.
So like I don't know, even 50 years ago, there were probably more kids who read just text than there were kids who read comics.
That's why it's hard to
Comics
sell
was
it.
for specialty, right?
Yeah.
But now there's way more image based. Like I have a good friend who's reading Harry Potter to her son for the first time, and she showed it to me. It's beautiful. It's got all these illustrations. That was not the Harry Potter I grew up with. There'd be like an illustration at the beginning of the chapter and not throughout the book. And in some ways, it's more accessible to him because the images are there, right?
Yeah.
Like, is that bad or good? I think in some ways, comic books are becoming a more popular medium than traditional text, right?
And it's still a hard sell these days. Any type of physical copy of something is a hard sell to get people to buy these days. It's like I understand.
Do you
that.
use a Kindle or anything?
No, I can't. I have to hold a book. To
that's
read
how
it.
I am. But like, do Kindles have comic books or like I guess graphic novels?
They have. There's not Kindle, but there are websites that you can do where you can buy.
But it doesn't exist on Kindle. That's kind of interesting to me.
I don't know. Maybe in the chat they know if they can do that on Kindle. But there are. I know Amazon. I don't remember what's the name of the one, but it's basically you pay a monthly fee and you can get access to all of them from a publisher.
Yeah, because that was like the whole thing.
I would never do that. Like I can't do that.
No, I like physical copies of things either. And in some ways, if that's true, if society actually prefers physical copies, like maybe more and more the only physical copies you can get.
That's what it's called. Yeah. I can't. I get like.
But it's not like they make a device. Like that was the whole thing with Kindle. They're like, you don't need to have bookshelves. You can like put all your books in here and carry it around.
I tried to read A Brave New World on a Kindle, and I couldn't do it. I didn't get through it until I actually got a physical copy of it.
Yeah, I need to hold it. And I'm actually bad. I like to be able to underline books that I'm reading and like make notes for myself, which means that I also can't go to the library.
Yeah. So it's really funny too. We were at the mall recently, like everyone, like the Barnes.
Were you Christmas shopping?
Barnes and Noble has a fairly large section of like graphic novels and omnibus and everything there that you can still get access to. That I just don't know how they stay in business with all that stuff. It always feels like they're just pumping out like pump and dump content. Like all the people there, right? There was a fair amount of people in that Barnes and Noble, but they were all in the anime section, in the manga section.
Yeah, well, and that's gotten bigger and bigger and bigger over time. I mean, that medium is so popular, which again goes to this idea that like, of course there are 500 Spider-Man movies and they all interweave with the other characters. Like visually presented texts or, stories are gaining really strong audiences. And so I am backwards. I get that. But like, I just, it's not a world I would have predicted
We're
living
old
in.
souls, as they say.
I'm meant to be under a rock.
All right, we're moving on, guys. So just the big news is just that there will be 6 more appearances from Tom Holland's Spider-Man. If there was an actor who deserves to keep playing a character, I would say he has earned that right, to be honest.
What do they do if he and Zendaya break up? Like, do they kill her off? Or
No,
like, what's the game plan?
They grow up and they work together, and you deal with it, okay?
Oh, okay.
You deal with it.
Sure.
All right, we're moving on, guys. So Black Adam, the movie that we have made fun of, has it reached $391 million at the box office. Well, Avatar 2, The Way of Water, has already surpassed that. That is very, very impressive when you think about it.
Man, sequel stories back to back, Brett.
But this isn't
and
just about
not
this,
a Christmas
guys.
decoration in sight.
I also want to talk about, and I've got some notes here. Me and Mary were talking about. We got some comments about people asking, like, it doesn't need to make $2 billion to become profitable. And I was like, okay, how much money does it need to make? Like, it doesn't need to be $2 billion, because it felt like James Cameron was being intentionally vague about what they had to make to get to profitability. Like, he said $2 billion. Did he mean the second and the third ones have to make $2 billion? Well, okay, so I'm going to go through this first. I want to, because literally my ADD, like, I was able to channel past my ADD and like frantically work on this. Now, I'm horrible at math, so anyone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe at the very least my assumptions about what needs to happen are accurate here. So the assumptions are that a movie budget is movie budget plus marketing is movie budget times 1.5. That is your movie budget plus your marketing. That's your whole enchilada. Your other assumptions are that the studio keeps 60% of the box office domestically. We're going to round up here and say, we're just going to say 60% all like wholesale.
We're not going to include craziest word problem of all time.
We're not going to include China, which keeps 75% of the box office, commies. And then also it's that the movie has to make double its budget plus marketing to become profitable. So the idea here is that if the end goal is $2 billion, 60% of that would be $1,200,000,000, right? Mm-hmm. So the budget for this movie was $350 million. It's at 350 to 400. We're going to be generous and say low end $350 million. So $350 million times 1.5 is $525 million. Mm-hmm. So that means that if you take $525 million times 2, that's $1,500,000,000. Or I'm sorry, $1,050 million. So he actually lowballed. So if they made double, they would make it just under. You see what I'm saying?
Can you imagine having a project where you're like, you need to make $2 billion to just barely.
This is like, who the hell? Like, what coke snorting stockbroker was like? Yeah, we'll bet $2 billion the whole hog on this. Like
I said to you before, and I think part of it is that these studios are working like collaboratively, right? So like they're like, yeah, maybe Avatar will lose something, but maybe something else will make money. Like, come out in the wash for us.
Well, a lot of times like they chalk it up to like, okay, will it make the money back in market? Will it make the money back in merchandise? Will it make the money back in streaming? Disney Plus, will it bring eyes to Disney Plus?
Yeah.
I don't know about that. It gets pay VOD and stuff like that. Afterwards,
right.
Some people will pay to rent it and stuff like that. So basically the idea here is that Black Adam made $391 million total worldwide by the end of its run. Mm-hmm. Avatar is now sitting at $555.9 million after the first week. In the first week of Avatar, it made $134 million. Black Adam made $167 total domestically. Like I said, who's making these bets to take that type of risk on something like this? And the thing is, like, Disney is struggling. Like even after making like $555 million, it's not helping Disney. Their stock is down. Mm-hmm. Like their shares are the lowest they've been since 1974.
I mean, if you were in their position, like, why would you take this risk? What do you think their motivation is?
Like, well, I mean, I don't know if it's because they trust James Cameron. If the idea here is like, look, you can also put Avatar in the theme parks. That makes sense. Like if you bring Avatar to Disneyland, like you're going to make money on the back end there with merchandise.
Sure, but you still have to invest money, right? You have to pay to make the merchandise. You have to pay to convert the rides to have the Avatar logo. Like on top of the movie budget, they are asking to invest even more to become like at a certain point, you're just throwing good money after bad. I would assume, unless this becomes, the way Harry Potter, right? Like took off and had such an intense fan base that spanned generations. Like you could put those logos on anything and make money, but I just don't see Avatar being this type of series, especially knowing they have 2 more movies after this, like
at least. Well,
and when are those coming out? Because this one took 13. Like
they're already through most of the principal photography for 3 and 4, and
I just feel like
there's
that's
a 9-hour cut sitting around right now for Avatar 3 that he's making them animate every scene entirely before they edit, rather than
which is like if I were the producer on this, it'd be like, are you kidding? Because you have to pay all the animators to then cut all of it, like. Somebody,
not cut it. Edit, completely animate it that he then cuts down in post.
But that's what I mean. Like they're gonna cut it out. So like they're gonna spend the time to pay to animate it to leave it on the cutting room floor. Like that is like just literally throwing $500,000 out the window.
And think about this: an hour of recorded film. When I was in film school, an hour of recorded film usually equates to about a minute of actual screen time. Mm-hmm. So we've got like. Edie Falco, who played the general, the least believable general in history in the last movie, said they filmed it so long ago, she thought the movie had already come out and did badly.
I saw that headline. Oh my gosh, I think that's amazing. Can you imagine? You're like, I just won't talk about it either. Then none of us can say anything.
Caper 2X says he thinks the billion has to do with the other movies. He said that he thinks that it has to do with making the other movies as well. I don't think so. If this movie had a budget of $350 million, which means $525 million just to...
and that's the low end of the budget.
And that's the low end of the budget before you take into account the fact that the studio only keeps 60% of that profit or of that income on the high end, because 40% goes to the studio, more if you're overseas. Like I said, China keeps 75%. It might be a little bit less than that in the rest of Europe. But here's the thing. Avatar is going to make more money overseas. The first Avatar movie made most of its money in Europe, not in America.
That's super cool for them and everything. But like, is there enough money to be made in Europe to make back $2 billion? Also, like, what is the next one, right? If he was like, I don't know. I get the weird impressions from James Cameron. Every time we talk about him, like, I feel like he's like, I'm going to do what I want and the studio's going to deal with it.
It's very dorky.
Or like a little bit narcissistic. Like, he's like, no matter what I do, I know that I'm right. And so if this one needs $2 billion to make the money back. Like, I initially, Caper 2X was right. Initially, when we said that like a couple of weeks ago or whatever, I thought it was all of the movies because it's such a big number. But your math stands. You're even being generous. Like on the low hand, he probably needs to make closer to $3 billion if it's a higher budget.
Yeah.
So what is the next budget going to be like? The next movie, he's going to spend even more money because if this one succeeds at all, he's going to be like, I was right. Let's keep going. Again, this is me speculating. Please don't sue me for defamation, Mr. Cameron. Yeah. But you know what I mean? Like, where is the limit for him? And also, who enforces it? You know?
Well, he gets a lot of leeway. Like that's the thing.
He clearly gets a lot of leeway.
The reason that these studios like to use lesser known directors now is because they can boss them around and they don't have the creative freedom. Mm-hmm. If you're a James Cameron, if you're a Christopher Nolan, you have the pedigree to be like, this is what we're doing. Like Christopher Nolan, I'm gonna recreate a nuclear explosion for Oppenheimer.
Which one is the guy who was like? Yeah, he was one who was like, hey,
he crashed an airplane into an airplane hangar for Tenet. Like, but hey, I'm here for it. I'm here for the practical effects. But like, he's gonna keep Caper 2X points out. Yes, that was the next thing I was gonna talk about. He's keeping the illustrator and the technical support team for continuity. Like, the best thing he can do is get these things done together.
Sure,
but there's not a huge history
you're keeping
of those
the same people, but you're still paying them, right? Like, it just becomes this thing where like, if you. I don't know. Also, what's the timeline? Like, how long does he have to make the $2 billion off the movie?
Me and Mary were joking. It's like by the time the last one comes out, she'll have like her grandkids will be going to see it by the time the last one comes out.
No, it's crazy. Also, like, are you saying that in the course of forever, he eventually needs to make $2 billion, or does he need to make $2 billion in the first year?
I do believe that it's the first one.
I mean, but like, if this one, you're saying in the first year after it comes out?
No, I'm saying that all in, it needs to make at least $2 billion for this movie to become profitable.
Sure.
It probably won't do that in its first run. Remember, the first Avatar movie didn't get all that movie in the first run. It re-released several times. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if this is going to have the legs that the first one did because the same type of unique piqued interest isn't there.
Yeah.
Like, people are going to see it, and I think it's going to do well this weekend because it's the holidays.
Well, and remember when the first one came out was completely unknown quantity, whereas now people know. I need Carter Banks to be here to be like, I liked it.
He loved it.
What happened? But doesn't it, like, in some ways, and maybe this is me being a little bit defiant, like, hearing these like crazy bloated budgets, or coupling it with Spider-Man, they're gonna have a fourth Spider-Man. It makes me want to find like the super low budget movies that are coming out there and like watching them explode. Wasn't that true of like Paranormal Activity? It was made with like no money and then became this phenomenon.
But the problem is with that is like, if you look at a character like Spider-Man. If we're talking character like Spider-Man, mm-hmm. and you look at all the money it's making on merch, does it make business sense to run low end?
I mean, it's not business sense. I don't care what the studios do. They obviously never listen to me.
They never
Brett.
do.
But
they will one day.
But just generally as a consumer, like, I wonder what else is out there. I wonder what are we missing because there's a history of movies that are made for what, like $30,000, and then they do really well. And
I mean, the horror movie, not 30,000, but like there's
Clerks was like 30,000.
There's horror movies that are made for like a couple million that end up making hundreds of millions of dollars and stuff.
Okay,
like
I'll even give it $1 million, but like, I just want to know, like, do you feel like it would be better to spend, like, how big would you think about $300 million? $500 for this movie, maybe, probably more.
I think they do it because they want to make the money on the theme parks and stuff like that. The $3 million movie that ends up making $127 million doesn't inspire merch.
But how profitable are theme parks, right? Didn't we just
Disney
let Bob Chapek go, and he was the head of their theme parks for years?
Yeah, but they didn't let him go in that capacity. They let him go in the capacity. Thank you.
Wow.
They let him go in the capacity.
Brett, do you enjoy
CEO.
this Christmas
I
music?
love this Christmas music and theme. No, Disney.
Brett, what's your favorite Christmas
Disney
carol?
makes like $14 billion a
ignoring me.
quarter on theme parks.
I get that, but like, I just think that this is not like. I feel like there is no way that any studio production is like
A good example.
well, we don't think we'll make the money back in movie sales, but you know what? We'll make it back in what the heck is happening? Theme parks.
What do you mean? What's happening? That's a crisis party.
Oh my gosh! I guess I don't.
It's a Christmas party.
I don't sit
technically.
I don't sit this.
It's
close.
a Christmas party.
Can you imagine if we'd gotten launchers that like launched ornaments across the room?
Okay,
Or
here's
snow?
I'll give you a better example of a movie that did it well. The first John Wick movie was made on a very, very small budget because it just wasn't expected to become the hit that it was. The signature style of that movie, meaning that the extremely involved action scenes that Keanu does himself that are filmed wide so you can actually see his face, wasn't done on purpose. It was done because they said they literally couldn't afford more shots and more cameras to pull for coverage.
Yeah.
So it actually developed its style based on necessity rather than stylistic choice.
Yeah.
But it became the style, and now the budgets go up and the movie does better, but it still won't capture, like, in my opinion, that first John Wick movie is classic.
Yeah.
The rest of them are just really
me
good.
being like rolling my eyes at this like gargantuan budget, right? It doesn't really matter. I am curious about the decisions and how they get made. Like, that's what interests me about this whole process. Who decides that Avatar 2 can be expected to make $2 billion, and also what's the timeline for that? Whereas like a different
when
franchise
do they get
doesn't.
to write it off?
Right.
At
Like,
a certain
and if
point?
you're saying, oh, they think they'll make money off the theme parks, like, well, that's actually a whole different department of their business. Like, I want to know how integrated, and it's not, for me, it's not just Avatar, like any of the MCU universe or anything else. Like, where do we see the cash flow coming from?
Yeah.
And
Okay,
it doesn't matter ultimately. Like I said, much to my chagrin, they don't listen to me.
It's tough. It's tough when that happens.
But like, what is the business model? And at that point, and again, I'll just say this: like, it's because that's what they're feeding consumers. And when you get a consumer a taste for something, that you can cultivate it, right? And if you're expecting them to just expect, you know, these huge, long, I seriously suspect there's no plot in this movie.
Avatar?
Oh yeah,
There's a plot in Avatar.
I don't believe you because he was like, "You're gonna have to go to the bathroom."
No,
like I've been saying.
there's a plot in Avatar.
Yeah, okay, Brett. What's the plot?
It's family oriented. It's literally about
You didn't even give me a plot. You just said it's family oriented.
The movie is about him being hunted down by the military industrial complex and trying to keep his family safe. That's what it's about.
There's gonna be no plot.
Okay, here's the other thing. Streaming killed the type of movie that you're talking about. The movie that you're talking about, meaning that they could make it for a certain amount of money, maybe it makes half of its budget to 3/4 of its budget back in theaters, was always be counted on to make its money back and become profitable in digital sales, or I'm sorry, in DVD sales and like pay-per-view, when pay-per-view is a big thing. We did a topic about this where Matt Damon talked about how streaming killed that type of mid-budget movie.
Yeah.
There is no longer a place for the mid-budget movie in theaters.
pretty wild.
Because streaming is where mid-budget. It's why Bros was such a head scratcher. Like, why would a movie that would clearly have thrived for a certain demographic or a certain market in streaming would have done fine? Why would you release that in theaters when you know it's not going to make any money? There isn't a place for it anymore.
That's fascinating. It's like our shrinking, disappearing middle class,
Yeah, it
along
kind of
with
is.
our mid-budget movies. That is really interesting.
So that's kind of that's why all you're getting is, like I said, coked out stockbroker on Wall Street bets on movies that are like either it makes a bunch of money back, and I'm sure they have very creative accountants that find ways to write off things that don't profit, right? Like they can write it off in tax loss.
Who knows?
Like, so here's the other thing about the movie Underperforming is they talk about Disney's stock failing. And I was wondering, like, what would be a movie that would be an analog to it that you could compare it to what it made? And the best thing that I could think of was not Avengers Endgame, but Infinity War, because Infinity War made just over $2 billion in its final run. And here's the thing. It made $257 million in its opening weekend. So it's already about $100 million, a little over $100 million behind what Infinity War made in its opening weekend.
But it's only been released in the U.S. so far.
No, this movie is like the amount I gave you was it made $134 million domestically. It made the rest of that $555 million domestic opening worldwide.
Yeah.
So the money it's made, it's fairly analogous to what Avengers Infinity War made, but it's behind the 8 ball here. But like I said, somebody said, I thought Avatar 2 wasn't doing good. It's not like, I'm just saying that it made more, it puts Black Adam into perspective, that Black Adam really was a bust, because Black Adam had a budget. We just found out the other day, the Black Adam budget ballooned to like $260 million with reshoots. So think about this. Avatar was $350 million, low end. Black Adam was $260 million, so only $100 million difference there, and the entire
If it's
run.
low end, to be fair, it could be up to $500 million.
No, up to
for
400.
Avatar. 400.
No, we're not talking about with marketing budget. We're just talking about the money put into making the movie. So Avatar was $350 million. We'll say low end. The firm budget on Black Adam was $260 million. So about a $90 million difference. But Black Adam's entire run was made in the first week by Avatar. So is it on pace to make $2 billion? I don't think so. But is it probably enough that it will spawn the sequels just because they'll be able to make the money back? But
the sequels are guaranteed, right?
Yes, either way.
Like
we're
that's what I also find fascinating, to go to your like crazy Wall Street bets. It doesn't even need to make the money back for the studio to say, okay, we'll go with the sequel. Like, the sequel is guaranteed no matter what. We basically,
they're already working on
it. We gave Cameron tenure, right? Like, he doesn't need to do anything. And in some ways, I guess that gives you security. Like, you don't have to have like a secondary plot to try and like make it work.
And the thing is that's inherited. He came from Fox. Because the first one was 20th Century Fox. This was something that Disney gobbled up in the 20th Century Fox merger. Also, the Big Sleepy says sperm budget. No, I said firm budget, but close. So, all right, let's.
I don't even know what to say to that one.
Let's do some super chats.
Okay, Yesh says Hannah Claire's new alias, Jana Blair Wicklow. Okay.
That's you, Jana Blair.
That is me. I don't know her, Jana Blair. Big Dave just sent 99 cents. Merry Christmas, Big Dave. Caper2X says, quickly, someone hit Brett with a snowball. I would, if it wouldn't mess up our electrical equipment.
That would be very bad.
That would be amazing. Let's see. What's your favorite Christmas Carol?
I'll tell you. Like, do you have a favorite Christmas episode or movie?
Well, I asked you if we could do like a.
We can do that. We'll do that.
Okay, I can't even think of it though. There was one Christmas Eve I watched a lot. Like, I watched the Office Christmas episodes back to back because they always do a Christmas party, and that was like pretty cool. So I'm gonna switch to this screen. Potatoes for Seamus says, well, Mary, you've grown up a bit then.
You're a little bit taller.
Yeah, and I dyed my hair and I got rid of my bangs overnight. No, I'm just kidding.
And he says,
Mary is seeing her family, which is super important for the holidays.
We will be back to our regular scheduled program on Tuesday, but you will
Brett's
be back.
kicking me out.
You will be back. You will be back next week, though, but not Tuesday.
We don't know yet.
Don't know
TBD.
Yet. TBD.
And then Caper2X says, please have more respect for senior, academician?
Is academician a thing?
Academician.
Is that a thing?
I forgot that
was
my word. I think so. When I looked it up last time it was, but I did not realize I'm being disrespected. Thank you for standing up for me. Let's see. Caper2X asks, Hannah Claire, do you like Wednesday?
Have you watched Wednesday at all?
I haven't. I really like the Addams. Like there have been various iterations of the Addams Family, and I've always thought they were cool. I just haven't started Wednesday.
A lot.
It's
thing very
where
popular.
And there's this thing where I have. Like, I don't always love recycled content, right? But I feel like they're giving it a fresh twist, and like everything that I've heard about it is great. It's just haven't started it.
It's the best streaming product since 2020. The highest, like other than Stranger Things, other than the most recent Stranger Things.
Yeah, I think because it's fresh and like they're letting the authentic parts of the Wednesday character stand out. I am what I am says, hey, Hannah Montana.
Hannah Montana.
She's here? Miley Cyrus.
Wait, hey, I would love to have, so we could ask her about Liam Hemsworth.
Oh my gosh, that would be funny. What would you ask her about Liam Hemsworth?
No, actually, that's not what I would ask her about. She was the start to me of the entire like celebrities starting to use gender ideology to like stay relevant. She was doing that in like 2018.
She was like ahead of the curve.
Very
on that
ahead
one.
of the curve.
Let's see.
And I love the song. She actually has some songs that I.
What's your favorite? Tell me right now.
I would have to think about it.
What?
Adore you.
Oh, I see.
There's an acoustic version of that song that slaps. If there is such a thing as a Hannah Montana, as a Miley Cyrus song.
And I'm gonna say, like, what was her song, Wrecking Ball? Like,
well,
that one was
who
so
doesn't
weird.
love Party in the USA? Also,
classic.
Party in the USA spawned the most underrated Weird Al cover of all time, which is a parody of all time, which is called Party in the CIA.
What?
It's absolutely incredible.
Who
Everyone,
made that?
Weird Al. That's what I'm saying. Like, everyone needs to go listen to, after this show is done, not now. After this is done, you need to go listen to Party in the CIA.
Weird Al is crazy. Would you ever go to a Weird Al concert?
Oh, I have a friend who goes to every one when it's in town.
Really?
In Minnesota.
Is he still touring?
He still wears the fat suit when he plays the song Fat.
See, I want to be that kind of person where I like really find my calling in life, and like we just keep going.
I still haven't watched Weird, the fake document, the fake biopic about him.
Gosh.
Like when promoting the fake biopic, he encouraged people to torrent it. Like, as a joke.
He just doesn't live by anyone's rules but his own.
does
And I
his own
really
thing.
respect that as a concept.
Gotta love it.
I Am What I Am said Avatar movie about a white man who injects himself into native matters. How is this movie woke?
Look, the funny thing about it is you can't.
Never mind, there is a plot.
You can't win because if you don't make the content, they tell you that you're not doing your part. If you do make the content, they tell you to sit down and stay in your lane. You really can't win. Like, we covered it earlier this week. That, like, he got called racist for doing the picture. You get called a colonizer for not drawing attention to the problem. You can't win.
Yeah, I think that's true. I like when people reinterpret the movies of their plots. Like, that's a good thing to point out.
Yes.
Okay, I need to stop watching YouTube says, Merry Christmas to the folks at PCC and Timcast. By the way, we'll continue to post borderline bannable super chats. It's simply what gives me life, with some heart emoji.
Well, it's what we love about you, that you keep it borderline and you don't go full bannable.
Yeah.
So,
and that's an important skill, right? Just to walk on the edge.
Well, you have to learn that skill set. Let's save the rest. We'll come back when we get through the next topic. So, speaking of, I was going to do Wednesday next, but let's talk about this. So, Michelle Yeoh, if you guys know Michelle Yeoh, you saw Everything Everywhere All at Once. She had some comments to say about ageism in Hollywood that I found particularly fascinating. It wouldn't have normally been something I would have covered, but I would have liked to get some unique opinions from someone who saw the movie. And but also,
remember, this is the one movie I saw this year, and
she's
Brett
seen
is
it.
like, wow, we're proud of you.
So here's the thing about the comments here. She's actually had a very long and storied career as an action star.
Mm-hmm.
She was literally called, what was it? They called her like the queen of martial arts in Hong Kong cinema. Mm-hmm. And she was one of the few female, one of the few actresses that Jackie Chan allowed to do her own stunts.
That's amazing.
So she was a Bond girl back in 97, like in
I knew that.
Tomorrow Never Dies. Like, also an underrated Bond movie. If people here haven't seen Tomorrow Never Dies, it's about an evil media mogul who wants to control the world by controlling the flow of information by owning the media. That is as relevant as anything could possibly be these days. Also played beautifully by Jonathan Pryce, who's really kind of no, okay, that's rude. He's awful on Twitter.
Brett walks it right back.
He's awful on Twitter. But here's the thing. So they talk about how it's an increasingly demanding space, but I want to talk about her quote here. So she says, Everything Everywhere All at Once was such a gratifying experience. I've waited such a long time to receive a script like that because as you get older, the box gets smaller and smaller, and especially for Asian female actors, it's never been an easy ride to start with. I honestly look at younger actresses with such envy because they get an opportunity to try all the different roles, but we only get the opportunity maybe once in a long, long time. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon was 22 years ago. With Crazy Rich Asians, suddenly I am the mean mom. Then I was auntie. Then I was the auntie. Then I would receive a script and they say, please play the grandmother. I was like, please don't put me in that box. Here's the thing. I get the feeling of kind of existential dread that comes with getting older. Mm-hmm. But I also think there's a certain lack of perspective here that's being blamed on ageism. There's it's kind of anti-reality to accept that if movies are supposed to depict the real world, which they always strive for authenticity, right? Yeah. You want to both simultaneously strive for authenticity, but then paradoxically play characters that aren't realistic to the real world. Grandmothers aren't normally doing martial arts in movies.
Right.
That's the real world.
Yeah.
Like, does that seem weird to you? I feel like it comes from an area of there's a lack of gratitude. Like, instead of making this topic about, I was so grateful for this experience because it's not what I would normally get to do, but having that opportunity was amazing. It becomes about what you're not getting rather than what you are getting.
I don't know if I pick up on that as much right now in her comment, but I do think there are people who look at the world negatively and they say, like, I'm so glad to get this because there are so many times I've been passed up on in sort of a the world is unfair way. Yeah. I do think it's true that that's the reality of being in a physical business, right? In one where your looks are important and your age factors into things. Yeah. In the same way that she is saying, like, when I was like kind of a young martial arts bombshell, I did different roles, and now that time is changing. There are also, you know, plenty of actors and actresses that you can think of who blew up when they were cast as like the dad in that sitcom, right? And
unless the opposite would be Kevin's dad in Home Alone, because he's literally just Kevin's dad in Home Alone now and everything he's in.
Yeah,
they just call him Kevin's dad. Like,
that's hilarious.
They advertise him as Kevin's dad.
Right. Well, I think there are characters who are actors who, when they are in their 20s, right, like they don't fit the roles then, and as they age, they become castable in this new age set for this new type of character.
You age into certain roles.
Right, and I think for women, it is hard to suddenly go from being like, I am a Bond girl, to being like, you play the grandmother. Like, that is a hard reality. On the other hand, like, I would also feel, if she's saying she feels constricted because the grandmothers sit in the background and they don't do much, and at one point she had been a leading star, like, yeah, it must be hard to see your career sort of hit the embers that way. Like, it's not that you're not great, it's just that you aren't what
I would argue those characters usually develop more nuance. Like, as an actor, you should see that as a challenge to bring more to a role that wouldn't have been there in your 20s.
And it just depends, right? Depends on what's in the script, and it depends on like what part of the storyline they are in. I think this comment about everything everywhere all at once is really interesting because the character it's just such a weird movie, and the character goes through so many different sort of dimensions of time and reality that you are able to have like an older middle-aged mom who's in this scenario who is able to both demonstrate some sort of like, you know, I think her action background does stand out in that movie, and it's not too much about, I don't know. I could understand why this would be great because you get to play both what Hollywood expects you to be, and also you get to test the limits of what kind of scripts they write for that character.
And here's the other quote she says. She says the term, not her quote, but they talk about Hollywood ageism through the decades. The term Hollywood ageism is a familiar one, not because it has been thrown around in volatile outcries by famous actresses over the years, but due to its relevance across fields of varying professions and within society in general. The crippling standards that women have been held to throughout history have subjected them to the male gaze that at one point declared that an unmarried woman beyond the age of 20 is ashamed of her family, while the more modern society looks at women who choose to be alone as an incomplete being with a better half to complete her.
I just feel like
I feel like that's unfair.
I also feel like complaining about ageism in Hollywood is sort of the wrong place, right?
Yeah.
Like
that's kind of what I mean. Like,
right. Like,
it makes no sense.
Like we've said, ageism affects all kinds of people in Hollywood, right? Like if you look too young for a role, or if you don't have the dad energy, you could miss a big opportunity too.
Yeah.
If it's just depending on whatever characters you're potentially going out for. I think that if you were to talk about ageism in, you know, I don't know, maybe nursing or some field where like the physical toll that the job takes on your body does preclude you from some type of work, and it is limiting to certain people, I might be more open to that argument. But I think when you link Hollywood ageism to just affecting women who are getting older, you are missing the complexity of casting.
Yeah. Well, also, like, look, crippling standards in the male gaze, it's a profession that is visually aesthetic by nature. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of getting annoyed with women complaining about, first of all, my biggest complaint is like
Brett's getting annoyed with women.
Let
them know.
They embrace it in their 20s. Mm-hmm. That's fine. But embrace it as you get older and understand, like, look, my career is changing. I'm evolving into roles that that I'm right for now, and it feels like there's a lack of gratitude there. The men aren't any different. The men are complaining for different reasons. Don't think I'm going easy on the dudes. Like
and I think we do see a pipeline of men who are getting passed up on. Like maybe they want to be the action hunk, and as they get older,
they age into different roles.
And not just like on screen but off screen. We see a lot of actors who diversify in terms of what industries they're invested in, or they become producers, they branch out their careers. And I'm not saying that maybe women don't do that, but I definitely feel like I hear about it less, right? Like if you are just trying to stay on screen but you're not getting the roles that you like, that's not the deck being stacked against you. That's not you expanding your horizon.
There's actually more than you'd think of. A lot of women are that have got into producing or work with, like, start their own like production companies and stuff like this. Here's the other thing: like men, in the past, what I've been told is that men age into their roles. So if you're a gangly 20-something dude, the woman is the height of her beauty and is going to get all of the best roles for what she's going to be casted for. The man needs to grow into the role that he needs to become, meaning that 20-year-old woman, that 25-year-old woman, even at the high end, is being cast with 40-year-old dudes. The man is on the upswing, the woman is on the downswing as far as their career trajectory. So the idea is, like, maybe the men grow into gratitude and the women kind of fall out of gratitude because they're grateful when they're younger, but the perspective isn't there as they age.
Yeah.
Like
I think it's
does that make sense?
It definitely does. I think it's always, it must be like just frustration that the phone stops ringing, right?
Yeah.
And especially if you're exposed, like if you look at that timeline, right? If women in their 20s, you know, if you make it in Hollywood, which is, there are tons of beautiful women in their 20s who do not jump up suddenly, and then you know that at 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, somewhere in that range, that is the peak, and it will come down like
very quickly.
I know we referenced her before, but like, let's think about Zendaya. Zendaya was a Disney Channel star. She is extremely in demand right now, both because of Euphoria and because of Spider-Man and because she does fashion. It's just all kinds of things, right? But will that be sustained when she's 45? We don't know. Whereas
if she's smart, she'll get into producing and she will start
right.
And then you can cast whoever you want.
You have no idea. Also, like, but with men, like, they don't necessarily have the same demands on their time. It is crazy how much it reflects fertility. I'm not trying to be gross, but like women's fertility right around 30, it's like that is like
you hit your peak and you have to capitalize
and you have to plan around that, right? Whereas men, you guys can keep going for a while there. And it's the same as true in Hollywood.
Cruise.
It's not ageism, it's the reality of all sorts of factors that make men and women different.
Yeah. Well, look at Tom Cruise. He's in his 60s and even he's like still, he's doing his action scenes. Granted, he's built the capital to be able to do that. Like they said, like he has to fund a lot of the insurance for himself because he's worth
They're like,
too much money.
please don't do that. And he's like, I'm doing it anyway.
Yes. So it's like
I'm thinking about the I don't know his name, and I didn't really watch the show, but the dad who's got the dark hair on Modern Family.
Yeah.
I have never seen him before in my life, right?
Yeah.
But he, at what must be in his 30s or 40s, got cast this job, worked very consistently, and is now extremely recognizable. I don't know what he's doing.
Look at Jason Bateman. Jason Bateman came in more into his own again, like in his with Ozark. He had this really bad movie in like 2013. It used the song "Sail" for the trailer, and that was like what I remembered about it. It was about like school bullying and technology. I forget what it was called. It was really bad.
Yeah.
But like he came into his own when he got to Ozark and met the dude from Better Call Saul or even or Breaking Bad. And those actors came into their own as they got older because the role demanded it.
Right. And they could not have been those roles at a different age.
Exactly.
I have heard that like basically some women's organizations will argue that like because women are only desirable and cast when they're in their 20s, right, there are fewer stories about older women in their 30s and 40s and whatever. And I fundamentally don't think that's true. I just think that
that's a problem with that's a problem with writing. They're not writing interesting stories.
And are the production houses funding them?
Yeah.
But also, number one, if you're an aging actress in Hollywood who sees that problem, how can you intervene? Can you write a script? Can you fund a script? Can you like get behind it? Also, I think that the stories that we tell about older women are interesting, but we often, I think sometimes it's hard not to take it as you're more upset that you are not being cast as like the bombshell. And then we see things like stories about cougars or this reality show about the
MILF Manor.
Yeah, like
MILF Manor.
It's a weird like culture where it's like you guys are being mean to excluding us. Also, we don't really want to be portraying realistic stories for women at these ages because we still want to be seen as like sex symbols.
The other thing is like, it just feels like nobody wants to be held to any standard anymore. And it feels like if the male gaze benefited you when you were younger.
Are you in the chat right now?
Yes, I am. I sometimes they're talking Bryan Cranston from Breaking Bad. But he kind of blew. Or another good example is
Bryan Cranston did have his staple moments
before
like with Jason Bateman,
Malcolm in the Middle.
Jason Bateman was Arrested Development.
Brian Chandler from Kyle Chandler from Friday Night Lights. Like he acts regularly in, like, he's never the lead, but he's always in everything.
Yeah.
Like he's another example. Like he's the dad. He's a dad forever because he looks like a dad forever.
Yeah.
And here's the thing: you can play
but he
the
probably
dad
looks
forever.
like a pre-dad. It's happening again.
It's a Christmas party again.
I love Christmas. Brett, you should have to tell me a Christmas fact about yourself every time the lights come on.
A Christmas fact.
Yeah.
What would be a Christmas
What
fact?
was
about
your
me?
favorite part of Christmas growing up?
We opening the one Christmas present the night before.
Yeah.
I love that.
Does everybody's family do that? I remember announcing to my parents that this was something that we did, and I think they were like, "What?" But I was like 5.
You guys didn't
or
do that?
3. We did do it. This gun's aggressive today.
They are.
We did do it. I don't remember, but I remember one of my friends told me they did it, and going home and be like, "We do that too." My parents like having this weird expression, like, "I guess so." Like
I have particularly, like, as somebody who does err on the nostalgic side, I have my own nostalgic memories about Christmas.
Yeah.
Like certain years. I had my own Nintendo 64 moment. Do you have ever seen the video of the kid who goes, Nintendo 64?
No.
In the chat, I guarantee you these guys know about this. It's a kid who opens, he gets a Nintendo 64 for Christmas, and it's the greatest meltdown you've ever seen of anything ever. He just screams Nintendo 64. I had my own version of that.
What was it?
I screamed into
You literally had a
I
Nintendo
literally got a
64.
Nintendo 64. I remember getting the Lion King soundtrack.
Oh my gosh.
And like when I was very, very, very young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember one year, like I think it was the year I announced we could like open one Christmas
And the
beforehand.
Skeletor staff.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny because you grew up in He-Man era. Did you guys have you're from Minnesota, White Christmas? Is that pretty normal? Lots of snow?
There's always, yeah.
Yeah.
There's been maybe 2 Christmases in my life where it wasn't snowing.
Okay, it was like hit or miss for me. There were a lot of them, yes, but every once in a while you wake up and it's like, this is not festive.
Yeah.
Get it together here, Earth.
Well, global warming.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
to me, it just feels like one of these things is like, look,
I feel like they say that about Christmas, like there's no snow for Christmas because of global warming, to like as a latch dish effort to get kids into recycling.
well, yeah, you got to have the different bins.
Which like you can recycle, that's fine, but like
Do you
doesn't
think
guarantee you a snow on Christmas.
Do you think this is one of those things as far as ageism in Hollywood that, like, we did a topic earlier this year? You might have even been on the show. Like, anytime there's like a topic about like a study that's being done where like the UK government did a study about ageism in Hollywood, and like, why is the government putting money towards this?
Yeah, also the UK government's doing
I'm
it.
not
Like,
I'm
it's not
sorry,
even
not Hollywood. You're like
in like the film
in, like,
industry.
yeah, in their film
Because
industry.
it'd be really funny if they're doing a study on like America's film center. Like I know it's influential, but like that's pointing your fingers a little bit.
But what's funny about it is the UK has far better representation for middle-aged women than America. Like, they've got all of their Miss Marple and all of their shows, Vera, all of these shows that are like female. She's a dumpy female detective. That's me. That's dumpy's not the right word. What would be a good word?
She's a quirky female detective.
What's a good one for? They're a little bit bigger, but
She's frumpy.
She's frumpy. Yes, frumpy female detectives.
It's funny how that like subtle letter difference makes a big difference.
Very big difference. Frumpy, not dumpy.
She's dumpy.
But like they have like, that's the thing. Like when they portray moms in the UK on like those shows, they don't look like the moms in like, it's not
Unrealistic expectations for moms.
It's not Leah Remini in King of Queens. It's just a regular looking mom, right? So I would say it would be actually the ageism and like the expectations were actually less so in the UK.
Well, and I also think with British television, and I'm happy to be correct on this. I love British television, and I think part of it is that they kind of want things to look more realistic. Like they want
I don't know
body
if it's by definition or if it's just a factor of like what Hollywood has done to our
I think America like puts the pretty filter on too much. But if they don't, like there is that aspirational to American culture where it's like we want to have people on TV that we sort of also want to be like.
What was the show with David Tennant and Jodie Whittaker? Not Grace.
Not Graceland, but Broadchurch.
Broadchurch.
You and I talked about this because I love Broadchurch.
Yeah, that one. I mean, that actually
First
is kind of
season
in
especially.
yes. After that, it's
Second season's solid. First season of Broadchurch is amazing.
There's a show called Shetland. That's a really good detective show where like he's a very normal looking dude, and like there's all sorts of shows. Like Whitechapel is a good like horror-esque crime drama about Jack the Ripper, about these guys who are like looking for a Jack the Ripper copycat in the first season, and then it becomes kind of an anthology per season.
It makes me think of, I never finished the whole thing, but Derby Girls, like this story about like these teenagers and like that part of Ireland, like they all look relatively normal.
Yeah, so
like, you know, their skin's a little more flawless maybe, but like for the most part, there are a variety of looks and they look relatively normal, even if the characters, the characteristics that they play are sort of exaggerated.
Even David Tennant is kind of a normal looking dude.
We had this conversation about Bill Hader, which I was like, he is both handsome and also normal. looking.
Tall, dark,
Like,
and normal.
how do you describe Bill Hader? But like, if you cast more people like that, I feel like in some ways you would make television more viable. Does that make sense?
A good example is Rainn Wilson, is a very normal looking guy.
Well,
who's
all
still
of The
camera.
Office. The Office has a lot of very normal looking people who, like, as the show goes on, become more familiar to you or whatever
Steve
else.
Carell is kind of like he looks normal, but if you do his hair different, he looks more like a traditional Hollywood dude.
Yeah,
right?
there was some like
so there's
photo.
like ageism happens in all respects, right?
Yeah.
It's just the roles are different for men and
I
women.
just think the term Hollywood ageism is being co-opted a little bit here, and I'm not sure if this actress from Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Michelle Yeoh's great.
She's great, and I think that like she is touching on some interesting points, and I would hate for her sentiments, which is like, yeah, it was more fun when I could like play a lot of different roles, and now I'm getting limited a little bit. Like, yeah, I could understand how that's disappointing. Like, but let's not make this a feminist issue.
Also, the other thing here is I pulled up her IMDb and I wanted to look back at her career, and I was like, this is just since 2016 the work she's done. So she's working
crazy.
consistently all the time, and these are big budget projects, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about Minions: Rise of Gru. We're talking about Everything Everywhere. Well, I guess Everything Everywhere All at Once wasn't a big budget, but it became a big deal in the culture. Shang-Chi, she's part of Star Trek Discovery. You know, sucks to be her, but she loves Star Trek, but you know, not many people want to actually be on Star Trek Discovery, but she's working consistently, and Crazy Rich Asians was another cultural kind of landmark.
Yeah, it was a huge
in our
deal.
Society. So
and in some ways, like I know she mentions it here,
she's getting all these opportunities to do growth for the community and growth for the industry, but she's not actually happy about it.
I don't know. I'm reading it not as negatively as maybe you are, and I'm not saying that I'm right or you're right, but I think there must be some chagrin, right? When you used to be able to be like the
Also,
fun, cool person, and now you feel limited.
The interviewers usually tee these questions up to make the actors look worse than they are.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like she came in there and was like, I want to talk about this. Likely it's T-balled up on a question.
Yeah,
that
well, and
becomes a
even the
thing.
language, right? Like, do we think that this actress used the term Hollywood ageism, or do you think the interviewer was like, how do you think Hollywood
Ageism in Hollywood
has limited your career, which once used to be big, but now, like, calm down, T.
I try to give the, probably more than other people in this space, I try to give, like yesterday I was like, I have no problem with nepotism in Hollywood, but it wasn't like that I have no problem with nepotism in Hollywood. My point was that I like to see people do good and succeed.
Mm-hmm.
So when an actor who comes from a famous parent, like a background of a parent that's famous, I like to see them rise to the occasion and do well. I don't think that that's a bad thing to want to see them do well.
And with nepotism, I don't think people who want to be in this industry should be somehow like barred because their parents were already successful in it. But I feel like nepotism is hard because yes, you come in with some advantages, you get some connections. On the other hand, if you do the work, like you capitalize on those opportunities, like that's reasonable. It's the nepotism babies who come in and like don't do well and then expect praise. That's what I would get frustrated with.
But then you get Chet Hanks, who's awesome and still he's still acting.
You told me this yesterday. It blew my mind. First off, because I didn't think he was the actor. I thought his
son is the actor, or his brother's the actor.
His brother was the actor.
Colin Hanks acts more, but Chet Hanks is still acting. He was in Atlanta this year, and he was in a bunch of episodes of Empire.
He just never stops working. That guy.
He's like the other day. He's got his Lamborghini now. He's like, I couldn't afford this when I was acting. He's like, because his business is successful now, so good for him.
But is he one of those people who just buys a really fancy car to be like, look, my business is succeeding, and then he lives out of his car to like make it look?
No, because he's got he's always posting videos from his like Miami penthouse.
Uh-huh,
Like I get the feeling
sure.
that the Miami
Miami penthouse.
I get the feeling that the Miami penthouse maybe was like dad co-signed on that. But like, you know,
It's like an Airbnb he's renting.
there's nothing wrong with being proud of, because the point is like he goes, this is what happens when you work hard.
Yeah.
Like you can
And
accomplish
look, a lot
things.
of millennials, most millennials have had parental assistance in buying a house who would just make it more relatable.
Exactly. All right, let's do some super chats.
Okay. Naska J117 says, first sick day at home in 3 years. Catching this live for the first time in weeks. No gross girl. Brett isn't blonde anymore. Why? Live or live? Yes, Brett should be blonde. And yes, we miss Mary.
Ghost Girl will be back on
She
Tuesday.
will be back. Guys, I'm like a substitute teacher. Just accept that I'm here and I will leave.
Did you have a lot of substitute teachers? That happened a lot to you growing up?
Off and on. I mean,
Were you at a school where they treated them horribly?
no, because I feel like various schools that I went to, there were some subs that are like, yeah, I don't want to be here either. Like, we'll just see you when you see you. And then there were others that you get kind of long term.
Yeah.
Like, you know, if your teacher has surgery or whatever else. And at that point, you're like, feel bad for you because you don't feel like a real authority, but you're here for 6 weeks. So we got to figure something
It's like
out.
a step parent. Like, yeah, it's like
Yeah.
they don't have any actual authority over you.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if it's like if the kid's older, like they're technically in charge,
And
but
like,
not really.
especially with substitute teachers, like if they're there semi long term, you're like, are you grading our papers? Like, if I get a bad grade, do I argue with you or should I email my homebound? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Then they're annoyed. They're like, you're not supposed to send the message to your teacher. You're supposed to send it
like,
to me. while I'm
respect
here."
my authority. Don't go
Exactly.
around our corporate structure. Yesh says, how many Timcast or other employees of the month have you won HCB? 4 or 5? I've never been employee of the month at Timcast. You're welcome to super chat in on Timcast IRL or email strongly to whatever our customer service email is. So far, we have had one employee of the month for the last year, I think.
Does that technically make them
And
employees
I'm
of the
pretty
year?
sure he hung his own picture on
It's
the wall.
it's still up. It's still
So-
it's up in the main part.
Yeah, not yet, but with your support, we can maybe make that happen. Let's
Or
see.
vote for me.
Yeah,
You
or
could-
Brett. Brett
or
works
vote
really
for
hard
me.
too.
I'm happy for that.
Some of us work harder than Brett. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey.
No, you work hard. John Del Azaro says,
John Delarose.
Delarose. Okay. Well, thank you. Catch me. Merry Christmas, friends. This is for Hannah Claire, not Brett. Just playing.
He's going to be a guest on the show.
No way.
Yeah, John's
When?
great.
That was way too
coming-
high pitched. I apologize to everyone.
Coming up.
Someone tweeted like I was telling Brett this story. Someone was like tweeting on like I guess when I was on RL one time, they were like, yeah, I really hate that girl's voice, and I wanted to respond to it like, yes, me too. My voice is not my best quality.
No, there's a rule up here. Well, you know this. There's a rule up here. There is no listening back to the show
No,
without
there's
headphones
no.
on because I do not listen to the sound of my own voice. When I'm
no.
editing the show, I kid you not, this is my face. I'm going.
No, it's real bad. I don't know what to tell you, Freedom. Like, I do the best I can.
I do not listen to the sound of my own voice. Like I have to like turn the headphones away when I'm talking, because I only got the one ear that works. So I cover the one ear that works when I'm talking. When everybody else is talking, it's fine.
Yeah, if I could just mute myself, it would be
Like,
okay.
There was like one day where I had a sore throat and I sounded like this, and I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
let's go.
Sometimes I think I get too excited and like hit the pitchiness, but okay.
My hope is that they don't like. That's the same thing for me. Like I think I get excited on the show,
Mm-hmm.
and I would hope that they like appreciate that I'm not like monotone.
Yeah.
and bored.
Look, we're doing our best with what we were
we
given.
love it.
Let's see. Not Alan Rogers says, no, Mary, civil rights are back on the menu, boys.
Well, you know that's and Cart's back in the corral.
You don't know. You don't know what Mary's away doing. She could be actually passing legislation to take those away from you.
Or she could be fighting for civil rights. You don't know.
Who knows?
We don't know.
Let's see. Wayward
Dark Soul.
Dark Soul. Whoa. Wednesday is a Harry Potter ripoff. Done well though.
Yeah, well,
is it a Harry Potter ripoff?
a lot of people are saying that it's like that it's not anything new, but it's very, very well done, and it limits.
Is
the
it Harry Potter because she goes to like boarding school?
I
What's like? That's
Yeah,
an
like-
interesting critique, and I would like to hear more about it, having never seen it.
But
you know?
also like the things like they're like it's got limited social messaging. Like there is some like commentary on patriarchy, but it's not heavy-handed. So.
Yeah, I get that. Vanguard N7. Do I have to read all these numbers?
Vanguard N7.
E335. Are you a robot model?
Cool.
It's been a while since I've been able to catch you guys live. Love listening to you guys when I'm driving to work at night. Merry Christmas, PCC.
Thank
Merry
you.
Christmas to you.
And Merry Christmas to you too. I wonder what you do for work. Like my favorite things to hear, like when I find out that people like have jobs that like where they drive. and they listen because that's how that's why I love this medium.
Yeah.
Because like there's so like I used to drive for a medical supply company, so I spent all of my time on the road.
Yeah.
And that was what I did to get through the day.
I find myself just commuting to and from work. Like for a while I wasn't in the habit. I fall in and out of habits. Like when a podcast that I love goes off season or something, I like somehow forget podcasts exist and I listen to the radio a lot, and then I'm like, you know what are great podcasts, I'll put this on. And you can get through so many of them even if you have just like a 30-minute commute. I can't imagine how much you could get through if you were like a long haul trucker.
Yeah,
like,
they got to, and they have like harsh rules too. Like you can't use. I was talking to somebody who's like they have harsh like drug testing policies and stuff from what I understand, because you can't be using chemicals to get through the long hauls and stuff like that. That's a rough life. It's a very tough life to choose.
Right, and you can't start training to be a long haul trucker, like an interstate long haul trucker, until you're 21, I think.
Yeah.
So there's actually a shortage. Like I lived
right by a school that trained. It was terrifying.
I
lived by an on-off ramp.
Did your parents like teach you how to drive? Like
my dad did.
Okay, my dad did, and did a lot of clutching of like the like handlebars or whatever else. I don't think I was that bad, but I can't imagine electing to be an instructor for future long, like the Lord's work.
No, I lived by an exit, so you would see they would be merging on and off.
No, none for me. Thank you.
It was terrifying.
I mean, again, it's an important job. Like we have learned this from the supply chain demand stuff, but like, anyways, listen to Pop Culture Crisis when you get your license for that. I Am What I Am says, so Ling Ling is mad to find out the world doesn't care.
Poor Ling Ling. Look, here's the
1-0 and poor.
I am more preferential to Gong Li. She was in the Miami Vice movie. She's a very big actress, but Michelle Yeoh in that Bond movie is freaking great.
Yeah.
But she's also, it's like, who's the girl? Somebody in the chat might know. I can't remember her name off the top of my head. The one from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. She's a very big deal. Ming-Na Wen. She's another one that's really, really good, and I think she's getting closer to 50 now, probably, and she's still acting, and she's very believable in those action roles. She's very, very not imposing, but she's got the cool factor about it when she does those.
I want to have compassion for I'm sure it is hard to have been viewed one way really dramatically and suddenly feel like old and unattractive, even if you're not, like there's nothing wrong, but like to feel like that dramatic shift, I just don't like it. And it becomes like the Hollywood ageism, which is code for like patriarchy, which Hollywood like has tried to get rid of for so long.
She's as old as Ming-Na Wen's as old as Michelle Yeoh. Same,
really?
like only by a year. She's 59. She's looking good for her age.
That's like, I'm gonna send her a Christmas card.
Is she still married? She's still married.
You stay respectful over there.
I'm respectful.
There's time though. Like if she looks this good now,
she could be great by 70. All right.
Okay.
Moving on.
Dawn's Herald says, Merry Christmas. The crew needs to watch Klaus on Netflix and maybe do a review.
Yeah.
It's easily my favorite Christmas movie. This is the kind of super chat I'm here for today. And it would be a classic if the market wasn't so saturated.
This is one, Clownfish TV really, really championed that movie and said that it's really, really good. I did not get around to watching it. Maybe I will.
I've heard about it.
Maybe because it's come around to Christmas again. Maybe I will watch it tonight or tomorrow.
You should.
Do you have a favorite? Let's do this right now. Do you have a favorite Christmas movie or a Christmas episode of a TV show?
That's two different categories. Which one, man?
Both.
Like I said before, I really like The Office Christmas parties. I think that's why I get so into our Christmas parties. Although this year I did not realize how in charge of it I apparently was. I thought I was just running Secret Santa. And I apologize. I fall down on the job. But when I watch Christmas movies, I really like old Christmas movies. Like I am very sentimental. So I grew up watching what's it called? They go to like White Christmas, the one they go to, and I thought that one was great. I think it's funny that what's the one that they always play after?
I'm not an expert.
I'll come up with like a whole list.
Miracle on 34th Street, and then the first 3 Home Alones. I argue that the
Home
third
Alones were so inspiring as a kid. Don't you want to set like crazy traps for robbers?
The third Home Alone is an underrated movie. It didn't have Macaulay Culkin, and when it came out, they were playing it at we had what were called cinema cafes where you could sit down and eat pizza.
I've heard of these.
So this was at a time when I was like old enough that I could bike up there, and I got allowance so the tickets were cheap, but the pizza is what costed money.
That's
so
how they get you with the pizza.
I would sit there and eat, and I think I watched it 3 times in one weekend.
No way.
And I remember very little about it now, but I remember just loving the environment of being able to pay just a little bit of money to get the ticket, and then order the pizza.
Yeah.
Just like I have very vivid memories of like where I sat in that theater.
That's what I think is so powerful about like, and I'm sure people have this experience with like movies and stuff, like other movies or Christmas music or stuff like that. Like some stuff is so traditional or so tied in, and it's part of this like, you know, you're growing up, like you're saying, like you're old enough to bike, you remember this specific place. Like it's so good. When I was growing up, we used to go, like we'd go to church on Christmas Eve, and then we'd go to a friend's, like they'd have a bunch of people over for Christmas Eve, and all of the kids would end up in this like one living room watching a movie. And every single year for I think the better part of a decade, it was the Jim Carrey Grinch That Stole Christmas, like the live action one. And I watched it recently, or like a couple Christmases ago with my family, and was like, this isn't even as good as I remember, or like it's weirder than I remember in some ways.
Yeah,
like,
they're different. Like
it was like a classic though, and I remember like it felt like Christmas when I had seen that movie.
Yeah, the first Santa Claus, the first Tim Allen Santa Claus movie. Like to this
I don't
day,
know that I've ever seen that.
To this day, I have like very vivid memories about very specific lines in that movie. Mainly when the one guy talks about like when he finally gets his weenie whistle. He gets the and he goes,
I think I've seen
my weenie. I'm not even gonna repeat it because I don't want to get clipped. It was just that.
What?
Just
You don't
that,
want to get clipped? Why not?
Okay.
In the spirit of Christmas?
But no, but that, and like when he's being interrogated by the police and he keeps repeating Santa Claus in different voices.
I have seen. I've only seen this movie once, but I do.
And the other part was that there's this line. He takes his son to Denny's on like in like Thanksgiving, and like they're out of everything, and the kid just looks so dejected when he's like, chocolate milk. She's like, we're out. He's like, regular milk's fine. The way it was like they literally found a way to like capture sadness in a bottle and get this kid to repeat that line,
which is kind of fascinating. Like that's really strong writing. You don't have to like say, are you sad that they don't have chocolate milk and you feel like you're like whatever? Like you can feel the emotion.
Yep. And then as far
I wonder
as
what that kid actor is doing today.
That's a very good question. And as far as TV shows, there's a couple of them that really come to mind, and they're very, very cheesy. The first one was the very first season of Bones. They did a Christmas episode where they got locked in the Jeffersonian because there was a pandemic. Or
something got out in the thing.
Something
and
got
they had
out
to stay in.
because Hodgins wouldn't wear his mask and was drinking eggnog, and they all had to kind of like learn to they learned a little bit about each other. And Booth got stoned on the medication they had to take to do it. And that's when you find out that Angela's dad is the dude from ZZ Top. But it was just and the whole point of the episode was like they were working the case of like a man in a fallout shelter, and it's just a lot of characters that didn't necessarily always get along or like would clash would get along in ways that weren't normal. There was also an episode of Warehouse 13 in the first season where they would do yearly Christmas episodes out of order.
Interesting.
Weirdly out of order. And they did a Christmas episode where basically Artie gets he hasn't seen his dad in like 40 years, and Claudia goes and they go looking for his childhood piano, and they find his childhood piano at a music school that his dad still teaches at. And like it's played by Judd Hirsch, which is really funny because Judd Hirsch and Saul Rubinek are both Jewish, but they're like they have a Christmas, and it's a thing where they talk about the fact that they're Jewish, but they're having a Christmas tradition, and it felt like we were a country at that time, right? We were united in the fact that like it was the holiday season, and those stick out to me. Very different years. I think those are about 3 or 4 years
I feel
apart.
like I don't see that kind of unity unless you're at an airport where like every flight has been canceled for weather. Like, have you ever been traveling? And I think of it as a Christmas thing because it's often snowstorms, and just like gate after gate, every flight. And it's like, that's when you see people, like I have been in airports where people have been like, hey, like, does anyone need to talk to the like nearest hotel? Like just pass off their cell phone. Like it's that kind of unity that I think we miss. And I think that's what's so interesting about like Christmas traditions, because they are shared memories in a lot of ways.
And the cynicism seems to be kept at bay during the holidays.
Yeah,
At least it feels that way to me.
And I think in some ways that's also because we have like a lot of people with holidays, like you're doing it for the kids in your lives, right? So like you're going to make it work. And I think that is admirable. And like, I don't know, I love Christmas. I think it's fun. I also feel like it's like the chance to take a break, especially like end of year rush, and you get into routines and stuff like that.
I think it's stuck.
Let me see.
Yep.
This is
if you over the money guns are not easy. The money guns are ugly.
They're fickle. I don't know what to tell you.
You got to pull all of it out and then put it back in.
Okay. Look, I'm an engineer now. I can fix these things.
All right, we'll hold off on the rest, and we will come back after the next topic. All right, guys, we're moving on. So I knew Hannah Claire would like this because, guys, Hannah Claire loves award shows. It's Hannah Claire's favorite thing in the entire world. There's nothing she loves more than award shows and award show season.
Do you remember we got compared me to a substitute teacher? Brett is that kid who's like, there's a sub, they have weakness. I will torture them. I will say it right now before we get into this. I don't get award shows. I think that their time has come and gone. And I think in some ways, trying to make them a thing is making Hollywood look even more sad than it is.
Yeah. Well, it's like who cares anymore? Right?
Well, it's like not even meaningful because everyone who's weighing in on judging these award shows is biased. Like they specifically leave some movies out, or they, it just, what is the point? Also, like I think what I said a long time ago was like the people who are deciding what movies win, they probably don't represent my character, my values, or my interests. So why do I care what they think?
Yep. So basically, Australian actor Hugh Jackman on Tuesday backed one gender-neutral acting category in which all performers compete as a way of merging male and female acting award categories into one. There's some misinterpretation here because what they're saying is they're merging male and female acting categories into one, but we all know that that's not what they're talking about here. What they're talking about here is non-binary and people who identify as gender non-conforming. But those are the ones that they believe that should all. So everyone should suffer because
I like this idea that we're getting away of like best female, like best actress and best actor, like. That way, Hugh Jackman is like, I just want to be the best out of all of you. Like, this is where the feminists are like, no, we need our own thing.
He's established. He's the one who benefits from this because he's the one whose name recognition will put him at the head of the pack for something like this. Yeah. But that's not the quote is really funny.
Like he's bored. He's already beat a bunch of people. He's like, I can take you all down.
He's like, didn't you see The Greatest Showman? No, he's like, yeah. So here's what he talks about. He goes, he revealed that he's a big fan of having one gender neutral acting category in which all performers compete. He added, that would be a really positive step. I don't understand why it's split into just two genders when we all know it's a much bigger spectrum. I'm literally picturing a rainbow colored gun at the back of his head.
Do you remember?
Sorry.
Like, I don't remember what was happening, but a couple, like at various points, especially during Donald Trump's presidency, people would be like, we're about to be in World War III. And like, or no, it was when they were like, we should have women be a part of the draft. And it was like, all of a sudden feminists are like, no.
I don't know about that.
Like, that's what I feel like this is going to be like. It's like, he is like, yeah, of course, gender neutral. Absolutely. And there are going to be a bunch of people who are like, wait, this will make it much harder for me to possibly win. You are making it very difficult.
It's like they want to do that.
Would they give a first, second, third, do you think? Because like if you have gender categories, you're male and female, you're handing out 2 awards. So now would you hand out top 2? Or
Well, it's also interesting that they don't do best female.
Or are they just making award show shorter? This is just occurring to me right now.
They're like, nobody wants to watch
we have to find a way to cut this down. We're spending too much money. No one's interested. If we have fewer categories, we'll say it's because we're being open to gender ideology, and then we'll just spend less time on this.
Look, they don't do best female director, do they? Or they don't do best female composer.
No, they only do it for actors and actresses.
Because
as far as
they're
I know,
gendered roles. Because theoretically, it's because you're portraying a female character, whereas if you're a female director, your job is still the same.
I also think it's because I really do think it has to do with like the viewership, right? Like, you will stay longer if you want to see who your favorite actor and actress was. Like,
you can't say that anymore either. Actresses get mad if you call them actresses.
I don't care. I do it anyways.
I know, me too.
I don't live by your language rules. It's just crazy. It's also like when congressman and congresswoman, like, or they'll say like, it's a spokesperson for this person. Like, I will gender it until I am specifically told not to by our editorial staff, or my editor, I guess. I think that there is a desire to have as much exposure for celebrities at these things as possible.
Yeah.
So like, instead of doing like I'm not sure what Hugh Jackman means. Does he want it so that like everyone is competing at one thing? Or
he goes on further. So it says, acknowledging to the BBC that he might have shot himself in the foot and his own chances of winning would be halved if there was one non-binary acting category instead of separate best actor and actress categories. He went on, whatever the mix is, we should maybe just break down any of those categories that end up being divisive and unnecessary. So he's saying gender is unnecessary and divisive.
Wouldn't it be funny
that's
if he was like,
where
we should
are.
get rid of it and everyone should just get a ribbon? They should get a participation.
We should all just get participation trophies. That would be the best way to
everyone
go.
tried. You know what I mean?
And we all did our best, right?
Look, guys, we're all here. We beat out all those other people who are still trying to audition.
You know all those normal people, no, or not just that, like, or the plebs who have to watch from home.
Yeah,
like
they're not getting this award.
They're not getting it. So this is one of those things where, for me, every time we talk about it, I get more and more vibes that his manager told him to say this. Like, he did not want to say this. I don't buy that Hugh Jackman cares. Granted, I guess he's a theater guy, so he's from that community.
Maybe he's secretly on my side. Like, maybe he wants award shows to be over. He's
I
make
got
it all
other
one
things to
thing.
do. I got other things to do.
Like, it doesn't matter anyways. No one's really interested in this. So why do we have to keep having this many categories, especially when it's, like, controversial? If we're going to have to fight about where we put non-binary or, non-identifying gendered people into this, like, it's not that big of a deal anyways. Like, let's just start dismantling the institution. And I respect Hugh Jackman if that's his point.
Then I've got to here's something that would be really funny. What we need is a new form of feminism to rise. So first, what we need to do, we need to establish a best stuntman category, and then let 5 years go by. And then I want the feminists to rise up and say, we need a best stunt woman category, because women are stunt people too. And they feel that they're being unfairly put against the men in the stuntman category, because they're just there's more men doing action scenes. Therefore, we need women to have their own space for stunts. We can create a whole new movement for feminism where they can rise to the occasion and make their own stunt category.
I would be so fascinated if they introduce a stuntman and stunt woman category, if there are more movies that specifically write in female stunts, so they can try and, like, because they, like, when movies win awards, they're like, the winner of 3, whatever. Like, we don't say which ones. We just got some of them. Like, it could be best costumes, best stunt woman, and, like, good sound. And those are all valuable. Don't get me wrong. But, like, it would be interesting if, in some ways, movies are like, hey, look, we're not going to get best acting, but maybe we can go for best score.
It's funny too, because female stunt people, it didn't always used to be a thing, at least not as common. There's an 80s biking movie named Rad. It's amazing. Why
do I feel like you've talked about this before?
It's extremely cheesy, and it's amazing. And in it, Lori Loughlin plays a female BMXer.
We have talked about this before.
And Crew Jones is a male BMXer. And all of the BMX scenes that were not part of the big race at the end were all done by the same guy named Eddie Fiola. So you see this part where Lori Loughlin's biker character is very clearly Eddie Fiola in a wig. And I love it. Like, because she's dressed, she's got the slight bell-bottom white pants on and a sparkly black top. That is the most feminine thing you would have seen back then.
You're like, your back is very broad.
Your back is very broad, and your legs are very defined for a woman in these one random shots. And then the other shots to compensate are just of her, are very clearly like the bike on like some type of platform, because you can't see it, and it's just Lori Loughlin from the knees up, and you can see that the bike is clearly attached to something. That was what stunts were like for something like that back then. So they said, who Jones? No, it was Crew Jones. The character's name was Crew Jones, CRU. I don't know how many people in the real world have been named Crew.
I don't know either. I don't think it's uncommon.
You know, that movie was like Talia Shire, the actress Talia Shire. Adrian. Okay. She produced that movie, and she hated it so much that she refused to let it be, like, she bought it and wouldn't let it be produced again.
How did you see it?
I saw it when I was young. But then eventually I had to sail the high seas to get a copy. But just a couple years ago, the statute of limitations has long since passed.
You can't get them now.
But just recently, they finally got it out on streaming. Like, you can finally
streaming that movie.
It's like some company I'd never heard of. Like you can like download it for pay VOD now.
That is fascinating.
The 80s.
Did you do this immediately?
Yes, I did. I immediately. Haven't you ever heard the song?
He had like a Google alert set up, and he was like, "I'm in."
Like, I was like, I know I've got a lot of work to do, but what I really want to know is, like, would Crew Jones have been eliminated for hopping a barrier during this race in Rad? Like, I would go off on these tangents, and people would be like, "What are you talking about?"
You're like, "I'm just in a small world. I'm like, it's like I experienced something that none of the rest of you did."
Yep, it was those were good times. It had who is the one of the guys, Bart Taylor is the guy in the movie who was played by a guy named Bart Connors in real life, who was like an Olympic gymnast. And this was his first thing after being an Olympic gymnast, is he was in a movie about bike racing.
That's cool.
I love it. So I'm saying that movie should have won awards, but I'm just saying that the actors, like, they had to have a guy do these stunt scenes. So,
right.
you know.
So would he win?
The best female action star, like, would it be because he played, would he
win the best female action stunt, or would he win best stunt man because he is a man?
That we
assume.
we could solve all these problems by just getting rid of it entirely.
Do you think that would help? I mean, do you think that would help award
not.
shows if it, in some ways, it may, forget the wokeness aspect of it, like, it makes it more competitive if everyone's competing for one single title.
Not in an industry that loves to virtue signal. It will be nothing but
they would get
signaling.
virtue signaling by being like, it's gender inclusive, like, and it's equality.
And then they'll
right?
say, even in the gender inclusive awards, straight white men have won all the awards since
that
this
is
year.
true.
Like, that's what they will say.
Wouldn't that be interesting if you took away the barrier and, like, it's like straight white
Just
men
straight
still
men.
win?
Yeah.
Like, what would that tell you about culture?
We did a thing earlier this week. There was a topic that was like they made the award shows more the people who vote for them.
Mm-hmm.
They made the Academy voters more inclusive, and it didn't change anything. And they were mad because, like, isn't that what you want? Isn't that actually the meritocracy you were looking for?
Right.
That everyone got a chance to vote, or all the people from all the groups you thought deserved a chance to vote.
I just feel strongly that award shows will eventually die away. Like, I just think that they must
Or they'll go online only, maybe.
Right. I mean, I think in some ways they just must not be profitable. I know that, like, there are some merits, but streaming is so disruptive to the traditional means of releasing movies that, like, do you even need to have a critically acclaimed movie? Like, at what point does that matter? Or is it that there are certain award shows that will die away as other ones become valuable, right?
My pitch earlier when we were talking about this before, said, you know what they need to do? They need to start sending the actors to the Razzies. Like, embrace the
some go.
I know that when Catwoman won, Halle Berry accepted in person.
I think Selena Gomez went and accepted one in person too. I don't know what for, but
my point when I was talking about what I mentioned, Mary, is like, remember when like mean tweets was a thing, and everyone kind of liked it because it took the piss out of the celebrities.
Yeah,
like you had, like, they read something mean about themselves and then give a sad face.
Yeah,
and my point was, like, I didn't like it when they clapped back, because you have all the power, you have all the status,
right?
You're saying this on national television. This is not what the point of this is. The whole point is that you're not the court jester anymore. Now you're the king,
right?
They're the court jester. You're supposed to be the one that's allowed to mock the king.
Yeah, and I could understand, like, in any industry, right, that you would have awards. I mean, there's awards in journalism, there's awards in accounting, there's awards for architecture, right?
Eisner's.
There's tons of stuff. I don't think it's wrong that Hollywood would want awards, but, like, the idea that it matters to the public is actually long gone. Like, I don't think it matters.
We don't have the unified culture anymore that cares about those institutions.
And I can't help but think it must be a loss, like, in terms of literally a financial loss to keep putting them on these large scales. I think in some ways maybe COVID was helpful because they could limit, you know, who was allowed to go, and, like, you know, you couldn't have people close together and stuff like that.
Yep.
So they could see, like, no one really is pursuing this.
Yeah.
I don't know that winning an Academy Award is meaningful outside of Hollywood.
Yeah.
But it doesn't, I could understand where, like, that does matter to producers and stuff like that.
Yeah, for the resume and stuff. And it's like, before we move on, let's just move on to the next topic, because somebody who did win an Oscar, an Academy Award, and gave it to Zelensky is Sean Penn. Sean Penn is in the news because Sean Penn believes that if you are not vaccinated, you should have to be forced to stay home, not have a job, and not go to work. You should just go home and die, will you? Says Sean Penn.
Crazy.
Like, how detached from, like, the common man can you be, I ask? Like, when you really think about it, like, he had
also, like, this tweet that we've pulled up is from December 18th, 2022. So that means this interview hopefully was, you know, it's not something from last year. This is several years into this. It wasn't the Washington Post that just ran an article saying the most COVID deaths are among vaccinated people. Like,
yes.
This is
well,
such
then they
a
softened
bizarre...
that headline. They softened that headline.
Well, I don't care. I saw it first.
Yeah.
This is such a bizarre stance to take. Like, when we were at the height of the panic of lockdowns and stuff, like,
people were angry.
It's still not an
people
okay
were-
thing to say, but I would understand where you're more freaked out. Whereas like 2 years in, this is your position. Like
have you just not
Crazy.
been paying attention to the news, or are you just that clueless? But that's the thing. They're talking heads. They are that clueless most of the time.
Well, and also, what is this message saying? Like, if you don't get vaccinated, you should suffer. Like, you shouldn't have the choice.
It's
you should have
malice.
to conform to the medical authority of the government to support yourself. Otherwise, you should be ostracized, says the actor. Question? Like, why are you the one who's doling out this advice?
It's very funny how quickly it proved that a lot of like celebrities are extremely authoritarian. Like extremely
They're so
authoritarian.
But
Not-
also because I think rules are bent for them all the time. So they're like, yeah, take the vaccine. I don't care. I will go off and live somewhere else. Like exceptions are made for me, but everyone else should comply.
Somebody pointed this out. It says Sean Penn, journalist who called Hugo Chavez a dictator, should be jailed. Like I love it because
So
like
it's not my favorite political authority.
I mean I'm better. I'm better like under the idea that I just like maybe he's getting old and this is all like a hilarious. Like I just want to say the worst things possible. Maybe he's just a nihilist, but I don't think that's what it is. But
He's
I think that
actually
this,
trolling everyone. He's trying to get everyone to be like, can you believe he said that?
this dude went to Ukraine and gave Zelensky an Oscar.
What is Zelensky going to do with it?
Like, well, Zelensky was an actor, so maybe he was honored.
but it doesn't like work. Like Sean Penn doesn't get to
He's
be
like,
like, I'm officially bestowing you with my Oscar. Like it's as if you won it. Like
He's
that's
like, is
just
this like
weird.
is this like a weapon I can use against Russia? Like, what am I supposed to do with this thing? Like, it makes no sense. So beyond this, the point of this topic, guys, is I wanted to draw kind of a comparison about two people who have taken what you would call two people in the same sphere, which is Sean Penn and Tim Robbins, both actors, both celebrities, both had their own early opinions on COVID and went down vastly different paths as far as their understanding of what it meant for culture, their understanding of what the pandemic meant as far as how it related to politics and our government. And it's a shocking difference between the two. So we have this article from Breitbart from about Tim Robbins. He was on Russell Brand's podcast, and they
What is
released.
Tim Robbins in? I'm not as familiar.
I would have to go like a bunch of stuff. Like he's in a bunch of stuff that I've seen, but like
Mystic River.
Yes, okay, that's what I think.
So they were both in Mystic River.
Like,
okay.
So this is one of those things where you have to look at like, do people grow? Like what we learned early on is that people were going to listen to what the government had to say. And the problem I have with that is the reason this podcast is named what it is that the people parroting that information were these people, celebrities. And a lot of these people who were complying weren't complying because they actually watched the news. They're complying because they follow some celebrity on Twitter. That's somebody that they look up to, and for some reason they think because they can act in a movie that they are some type of authority on government or politics or health and or environmental crisis. You know, if we're talking about climate change and stuff like this. So that's what I'm
the
talking
crisis is that people depend on pop culture
Yes.
to make their worldviews, but pop culture has been infiltrated in some ways to be held to sort of unrealistic standards. There's not organic development of opinion.
Exactly. So the idea here is, my question is, can people grow? Like what I've learned is that a lot of it is I've been told that it's harder to get somebody to realize they were wrong than it was to convince them of something in the first place, right?
Sure.
Like once you've been told something wrong, it's harder to convince you that is not true than it is to convince you that it's true in the first place.
Yeah.
Right? So I find it harrowing when people can come to their own conclusions because they kept their eyes open.
Yeah.
There's a lot of YouTubers who have talked about how they believed certain things of certain groups and they didn't realize that they believed separately until they actually interacted with people in those groups. And in a society that is increasingly closed off, increasingly reliant on digital communication, which is automatically inherently combative.
Yeah.
Just interacting with people that see the world see the world differently than you in a human manner is often enough to maybe not make you agree with them, but register humanity that can't be seen digitally. In this case, Tim Robbins didn't realize that he had come to a different conclusion, that he was going to start going to a different conclusion until he found himself biking past a protest against vaccine and mask mandates.
Yeah. So should we tell this story?
Yes.
So Tim Robbins did this interview with Russell Brand, and he says that he he was just recounting his experience with the lockdowns and with COVID and how mandates affected him. He said he would get angry initially when he was in California and people weren't masking and people weren't social distancing. It was actually something that upset him. He goes to New York State. He lives there for a little while. He ends up in the UK and his opinion begins to shift. And he says he was somewhere he could hear a protest, an anti-vaccine or anti-masking protest is what I think he says. And people, it's this funny thing where he's like, so I went there. I mean, I had my bike. I was biking around. Like,
I wasn't going there.
He said the words, I joined them. I mean, I just happened to come by, and he said, talking to the people who had these views, he's like, oh, they're not the people I thought they were. In fact, a lot of them are left and liberal and hippies and whatever else. And
they believe in personal freedom.
And they believe in medical autonomy, right? So I think this kind of honesty, I mean, I think in some ways you have to applaud Robin for being like, I am honest. I did not agree with this at all. I thought it was wrong, and I have changed my opinion.
It's very hard to admit that, especially in the, like, I find that, like, it's almost maybe easier in, like, an interview format than it would be online. Like, it's very hard to admit you're wrong. Like, every time I see people argue, like, one of my bad habits is I don't argue with people online, but I am a doom scroller who will read an argument that people have.
You are there with the popcorn?
I am the, like, but I hate it. I do it, but I hate it. Like, right? And, like, every once in a while, somebody will be like, oh, yeah, you were right. I was wrong. And then, like, the person doesn't know how to respond to them because nobody expects anyone to ever admit that they weren't right about something.
And like you're saying before, like, when people take a stance on something, especially publicly, like, they don't want to back down. Now, I don't know that Tim Robbins backed down. He mentions in the interview he has a charity theater company that had to stop working. Like, it seemed like it is Hollywood, right? Like, he's a celebrity and he's an actor, but like a lot of Americans, lockdowns had an increasing effect on him, not just his business and his personal work, but also in the way he interacted and saw his community, saw people around him, like, increasingly negative, increasingly hostile, until suddenly he was like, actually, I don't know. And he says he began to sort of question the information, especially when they started changing the words.
And it just feels like most people aren't questioning or don't I don't know if they just never take in that new information or if, like, the number one way that I feel like they get through it now is, like, they've demonized the news source that runs opposite to their worldview.
Yeah. Or if you were to say, like, if you polled people, you know, when vaccines first started coming out and people were like, no, it's the right thing to do. You need to do it. Help everybody, whatever else. And you genuinely believe it. Like, that is one thing. I would be curious 2 years out if it didn't have the same connotation as being, like, a conspiracy theorist or someone who's against culture or whatever else. Like, would people who got the vax who are like, yeah, but if I could do it again, I wouldn't. And it's not because I think that it's terrible. It's just I think that the pressure that was put on us to comply and the fear that was used to motivate us, like, turned out to not be as serious as it was, right? I think that we can all look back and be like, hey, I think we all would have made different. We would all handle that situation differently. But what's most notable is if you say that now, you have been brainwashed. You are giving into this other side when, like, we don't give anyone the space to be like, yeah, I think maybe we made the wrong call, or my opinion, I've gained more information and my opinion has changed.
You're QAnon now, or you've been brainwashed by people. Where was the first place you heard about it when news first started about the pandemic, about COVID?
Well, I was living in New York, and so I remember watching the news, and, like, for my job, I kind of kept an eye on it. But then I'd been really sick with the flu, like, right before, and
I got sick right away.
I got sick early March, and it was like, you know, you're really sick, you're horrible. Like, I had such a high fever, and
in February, like, right.
Yeah, I got sick like last couple days of February into early March, and I remember when I finally started feeling better, I took the train out of New York to, like, go see family, and as soon as I stepped on the platform, they were like, the first COVID case has been detected in New York, and, like, that was like March 12th, 13th, like, the world just started shutting down. But, like, there had been conversation about it since December of the year before.
That's what I was saying. Like, I first heard about it from Styx Hexenhammer, who was talking about it in December.
Yeah.
And basically saying, stock up on supplies. There's going to be problems and stuff like that. And it's like, maybe it's because you got that early warning from somebody that wasn't giving you panic vibes that it allows you to think more clearly. But if you're a working actor, you're not in tune to culture war issues, and politics aren't your thing outside of just what you take in on Twitter and in the news.
Yeah.
I can't blame them originally for acting or for being misinformed, but I do have problem with when your first thought goes to authoritarian measures and hatred and vengefulness.
Well,
I take issue with that.
I think part of it is if you grow up, if you're living in cultures and cities that like, especially in industries like Hollywood, where it's like you need to keep up appearances and you need to see what everyone else is doing and go with it. Like it becomes, you become even more susceptible to being like, I am going to see this decision for myself, right? And I, with Sean Penn, 2 years out, being like, you should not work if you should stay home. Like, are you looking
detached from reality?
Right. And are you looking at any of the science? Like, does that support it? Does that seem fair? Does that seem like that's a viable option for a human adult to just not work? Are you saying that like they should compromise their beliefs? Like, we would hope that we live in societies where you are allowed to exercise autonomy over your decision making, and therefore your decisions are honored as much as they can be as anyone else, right? If someone chose, it's like now, like if you're on a plane and someone wears a mask, like, I don't care, do what you need to do, right? I actually
get annoyed when people complain. Like I have my bad moments where I roll my eyes, but I understand that some people are immunocompromised, and I'm as
just like I don't want to have to explain myself to someone else. I don't need you to explain yourself to me. Like if that's your choice, that's cool, but I'm not also going to do it, right? Yeah. And I think that this evolution of being like, I felt angry at people, like that was our culture's way of being like, if you don't comply, you are harming other people. And people who are empathetic are like, yeah, why would you do that? Like,
and the media pushed that.
Right.
But like, you're killing grandma.
With no data and no science to back it up, and with no ability to say like, well, hey, what are the long-term consequences of these decisions? And like, it is funny to contrast these two people who co-starred, who are on different ends of this cycle, because I think they are, even though they're actors, like a sampling of the American public, they are people who are still rabid about what you should be doing, and there are people who are like, we are on the other side of this, and I look back and have taken away these lessons.
When we covered that topic about Bill Hader wearing a mask to like the Golden Globes or whatever, the comment section in like Cinema Blend or whatever it was, I don't remember which site I was reading. Oh, it was like AV Club. They were like, I'm with him. I'm not wearing my mask, and my kids are going to be wearing their masks until I know good and well that this is gone. That's never going to happen. It's 2023.
We aren't eradicating COVID. It's going to be endemic, and that's going to be true in a lot of countries. And we just need to decide when we're at that point. And a lot of medical experts believe we're there. If you choose to wear a mask, if you choose whatever, like, cool, do it. But if you're doing it to prove that you are better than people, like, that's actually not the effect. You're just proving that like you are more terrified, which I feel sad for you.
Well, and a lot of them look at that terror, that feeling is like virtuous. They're smart to be more terrified than you are. So I just think that this is the tale of how two celebrities who both have an enormous amount of public influence. I mean, comparatively speaking, to us.
Who are you going to hear more about? Are you going to hear more about Sean Penn, who's saying the right thing? Or are you going to hear about Tim Robbins, who's like, over time, my opinion changed? And he's not even being rabid or saying don't get it. He's just saying like, yeah, masking in particular, they have good questions about.
Yep. So it's like, maybe this is partially our fault as parts of the media too, but like the media doesn't reward nuance, and the media doesn't reward any type of middle of the road behavior. It only rewards the worst of people. Yeah. And I hate that. Like, one of the things about doing the show is like, I don't ever want to fall into the category of angry. Like, as much as a lot of the topics we cover make me angry, like there was I was sent a couple of topics, like things about like horrible things. Like, it was about like trans gamer gets caught texting like that stuff just makes me angry. It makes me sad, and it makes me angry because you know that people are being hurt. And I have to be able to ask myself, if we cover this, can I cover this in a rational way that will not just seem like I'm spewing venom?
Right.
Because one, it weighs on me over time, and I can't do that. Like, it's just not in me. Like, a lot of people, they thrive on it. They love the anger. They love the vitriol. And if that's your medium, and like there's an audience for that, like that's fine. That's your thing. That's not my thing. I can't do it for my own soul, basically. Yeah. But like, I don't want to get that angry. But the media doesn't reward nuance. It rewards anger.
Yeah. Well, and I think we have this fall in line attitude. Like, there are right opinions and there are wrong opinions, and if you don't say the right thing, we assume that you believe the wrong thing. Yeah. And I have just always felt like I I want to have enough humility to say that I don't know enough about everything to have an opinion on it, and to
That's how I.
you know what I
say
mean?
about
Like,
everything.
I think so much of the world is being shepherded into one side, or because they're afraid of being pushed into the other, and the consequences of those things.
Yeah.
And I think that they're like Tim Robinson. There are a lot of people who will tell you, like, yeah, at first I thought, like, sure, let's do this. This is the information I had, and I tried to make the best decision with it. And as I gained more information, it evolved. And I wish that we believed in that narrative as much, but unfortunately, like, there's a lopsidedness. There's a reason. You know, I don't want to like
And
to
we
get
live
too
in
political, but like,
we live in a 24-hour news cycle. There's never downtime to reflect.
well, and that means that there's no time for you to make your own decision.
Yeah.
Like, I think you should be given all the information you can be, and you make your own decision from there. And yeah, of course, there are going to be people that you maybe trust, you know, that their opinion, or, you know, whatever their background is,
Their track record.
it's a little bit more weighted for you. So if they say something, you believe it. But like, ultimately, I just think limiting information is the most dangerous thing.
Absolutely.
And I think that, like, in some ways, Sean Penn is showing, like, he doesn't have all the information. Like, he has stopped listening to the narrative in December of 2020, and that's
just
it.
stuck there.
He doesn't know anything that's happened since, and so much with all of these rules and regulations have happened since.
Yep, it's sad, and then it's like, and we know that the mainstream media has an ironclad way of like keeping things secret. They just don't talk about it.
Yeah.
Like, look at what's happening with like the Twitter files. They win just by not talking about it.
For sure.
They like, that's the sad part. It's like, I get angry because I'm like, look at all these people that aren't getting informed because they're just not hearing about it from bad actors.
Right.
It is what it is. All right, let's do some super chats.
Yeah. It's over 9,000 says, what are your thoughts on high school reunions? I'll be going to my 10-year reunion later today.
Thoughts?
Did you go to a high school
I've
reunion?
never been to a high school reunion.
I didn't think my high school organized reunions, although I've been told that that's not true. I think you should go, but I am a big, like, try to pour into your community, and at various points in your life, you've been through different communities, like your schools or whatever else. You know, you can always leave, right?
Yeah.
Like, especially if you live locally, you can go, check it out, see if you see anyone fun, and leave. You never know what people are up to.
I guess it also depends. Like, do you still live in that community? Are you still a member? Like, for me, like, even when I was in high school, I was traveling for skating, and my friends, like, the thing about skating is like, the sport is your community. So whereas most things you do are your community, even if you play sports, you're still dictated by where you live. If you play hockey with the people in your community.
Right.
Skating is not something where, yeah, you might have some friends in the area that do it, but once you reach a certain level, you start branching out to other people that do it in the state. You know, you organize, back then it was through message boards and stuff like that. So my friends were from
then.
my friends. Well, I graduated in 05.
Oh,
so
man.
it's like my friends were from all over the state. My best friend at that time was from Shakopee, which was far away from where I was living. So I had friends from all over. So I didn't really spend much time with kids that I went to school with. I had friends that were a grade under me that skated, but like they weren't in my class.
Yeah.
So for me, I never thought of high school as a place that I spent time at. It was a place I went to so that I could get done, so that I could go out skating afterwards.
I went to a really small high school in kind of a rural area, and so like I think I was the only new kid in my entire school my freshman year, and that's totally fine. But like, I think there are more people who keep in touch just because like they're still in that area, or you know what I mean. So for me, I feel like I would feel awkward going to a high school reunion, but I would still like think I want to. But for them, it might be like, oh yeah, I saw you a couple months ago. Like, everyone has their own experiences. I just think that like we don't do enough to try and like reconnect with people. And I think if you can, and if it's not a problem for you to go, do it. Again, like I said, you could always leave after 15 minutes.
Yep. So I say go.
Yeah, we say go.
Don't be a stick in the mud like me.
Plus, like, Hallmark would tell you, especially a Christmas time high school reunion, like you could go, your eyes lock with that person that you had a huge crush on back in the day, and then there's Christmas lights, and you get hot chocolate, and then you get married, which is my ultimate goal for all of you.
My favorite thing is like I love sending you the things from that guy who makes the the like how like every every Hallmark movie ever made.
Yeah.
And I was like there was a Babylon Bee meme the other day. It says Hallmark scientists say that they're dangerously close to coming up with the second plot.
I was no. So first off, they have plots. It's just like busy businessman goes back and nice hometown girl meets him,
or businesswoman, or
busy
big town lawyer,
businesswoman
big town lawyer
goes to small town and falls in love with Hometown Hunk. And I think these are all we need in life.
He's a lumberjack with.
He's a lumberjack who also volunteers to build the sets for the children's nativity.
He's got a young daughter. She's got a young son. They're both. He's a widow. She's divorced.
There are all kinds, but like they mostly stick to those two things.
So I say, oh, by the way, one trope I don't like in TV shows is reunion episodes. Every show that does a reunion trope,
I don't like
it.
Okay, I don't like the reflection episodes where it's like they cut a bunch of clips. They'll be like, well, what about that time? And then they show you just clips. Like, I feel like that's when the writers are like, I'm tired. Like, can we just...
Every crime drama, like every creative crime drama does one where they have to go to some type of reunion, even if it's not theirs. Like they are undercover at a reunion and they're always kind of cheesy. There was a good one from Person of Interest that had Nestor Carbonell in it.
Psych had one, and I thought that one was pretty good.
Psych is a well-written show.
Yeah,
though.
Psych is great.
James Roday.
Yeah.
Dule Hill.
Devoured Eagle says James Hong is like 100 years old and he's a legend.
I think Devoured Eagle also took issue with the fact that he used the term harrowing earlier for when I was talking about Tim Robbins. Yeah, maybe not harrowing isn't the word for it, but definitely commendable to go on your own kind of journey of self-exploration, come out the other side with a different conclusion, and admit that maybe your initial assumptions were faulty, and there's a lot of humility there. Humility is to be supported and encouraged.
Yeah, I think that people overlook humility, and you don't want to be like, oh, constantly castrating yourself. But on the other hand, I think that we live in a society that forces you to take an opinion too often, and I just don't like that.
Parodification says Bones had a great reunion episode. It was funny because it was the episode, if I remember correctly, that had the dude from Nightmare on Elm Street. What's his name? The actor from Nightmare on Elm Street. The guy who plays Freddy. I'm not the guy who plays Freddy Krueger. I just forget his name. But he plays the janitor.
You guys don't understand. Brett can remember every actor, and he's looking at me like I'm gonna save him on this. He plays the school janitor who would get her animals to dissect, because she was weird in the show. Oh yeah.
But yeah, so I like that episode because but not as much as others. I'm not a reunion guy episode. Just
I've lost our place in the chat, so I'm gonna read off this screen. Potatoes for Seamus says Hannah Claire is self-care with those eyes.
Yeah.
Thank you. I grew them myself. I've been working on it for my whole life.
It was Robert Englund. That's the Englund. That's the guy. I've England with the U.
Okay. Devoured Eagle says Wednesday equals Twilight movies rehashed.
I love that.
I'm getting some conflicting. I feel like you're just referencing other franchises.
Is it Twilight? Is it?
But how does it compare to Riverdale? Right, that's the other kind of teeny bopper show.
I've never seen a single episode of Riverdale.
Really?
I love the 100 though.
Potatoes for Seamus says, gotta have Hannah Claire say bad app. I'm not reading that. For the next gross John video. Merry Christmas, Hannah. I can't read all of it.
Hold on. You can't read the rest of it. It says Merry Christmas. I'll get it here, but there's something else I want to show you. It says Merry Christmas, Hannah Claire and Brett. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Merry Christmas to you too.
Keep going. Can you read the next one?
Yes, I can. Sorry. Oh, we need Mary back. 1,000 Foot Deep End says, no, I can't read it. It's gone now.
Okay, hold on.
Guys, you don't understand the tech behind this show. I am such a Luddite boomer. I never know what's going on.
Go for it.
1,000 Foot Deep End says, super chatting just so Hannah Claire has an easier username to read. I really appreciate that. It is crazy how much I struggle with this.
Before we move on, I want you to see this, Hannah Claire. That is you.
Someone tweeted this at me, which
we have to find the Gross John video. You need to see the video.
Is it the dancing thing?
Yes.
I have seen it.
Okay, she's seen it.
Jessica, who does all of the amazing art for the company, messaged me this 8 a.m. one morning and was like, you're an amazing dancer. And I'm like, that's not true. What is happening?
That was amazing.
Yeah. You guys are amazing and talented.
Gross John is an artist with the videos. He is.
Yeah, I can't imagine. Also, do you do this because you're practicing a skill for another job, or is did our show inspire this?
Also, Potatoes for Seamus, thank you. Merry Christmas to you as well.
What's the end of 1,000 Foot Deep End? I can't see it.
Oh, and Merry Christmas. And to you as well.
Guys, I'm loving the Christmas festivity here. Also, that's
Merry Christmas.
Waffle Sensei says, Brett, I am that guy, UPS driver by day, always listening and studying things to stay entertained. Y'all are my co-pilots while working. Thanks, bro.
Thank
That's
you.
awesome.
That is
That's
awesome.
cool.
And that is like Bocus is my co-pilot. If you're like my hashtag, Bocus is my co-pilot. We are all co-pilots here.
That's so funny. 1,000 Foot Deep End says, Christmas movie recommendation, We're No Angels. Not sure where to find it other than on DVD. The dark, dry humor is so unexpected, and Humphrey Bogart. Is this a thing where he's like an angel who comes back? It's like an old movie?
Well,
I could be wrong.
But what about Angels with Dirty Faces?
What's that? I don't want to know.
Home Alone.
Oh.
The Merry Christmas, you filthy animal.
Right.
Yeah.
Corey Anderson says, Hannah Claire, do you have children? I do not have children. I'm not married.
One day.
One day. We'll
is-
see.
Nobody asks if I have kids.
I feel bad.
Must
There's
be the hat.
There's an SNL also because you're always like, no, my brother's gonna outlive me. Like, but else people are like not sure.
Fair enough.
There's an SNL skit where it's like you're asking moms what they want for Christmas, and they're like, oh, nothing. What do you want? And then they all say grandchildren. Like, I think my family's at the age where like I don't even ask my dad what he wants for Christmas because he's like,
When
you
are
to
you
get
going-
married.
When are you going to
Doing my best.
provide me with grandchildren? He asks.
This next one, Devoured Eagle. Devoured Eagle says, we women are getting stunted.
Well, yeah. Well, stunt woman.
Stunt woman. Oh, okay.
See, the thing is, like, if you here, I apologize because if you came into this podcast and you didn't know anything about me or the show, you'd think I was like being rude to women all the time because I say
He is.
woman.
He's always-
It's a joke. It's a
No,
joke.
you're not the only one who does that, right? Like,
No.
it's happening again.
See, it's worth it just for your face. You're like, oh my God,
I just like,
it's incredible.
you guys don't understand. It's so fun.
Merry Christmas.
Don't you guys feel festive? Like, this is great.
Listen, I love the lack of cynicism of this time of year. That is the whole point, right?
Yeah.
That it's not cynical like the rest of the world.
I love having things to look forward to. I feel like so much, like especially like, like everyone in our office, and I'm sure all of you guys too, like we all work really hard and like it's easy to be like, I gotta get this done. Look at that money go. I gotta get this done. I have to be here. And then on this weekend, I've got these things to take care of. And I like the idea that like this is the time of year we go out of our way to like just enjoy things, right? Okay, Francisco Sanchez Jr. says, Hannah Claire Brimlow, if the Fast and the Furious leave any impression on you in the long term, it's the importance of family. Merry Christmas,
Aw.
PCC. But
Yes.
he spelled it Mary, like sweet, sweet Mary Morgan.
Oh,
That's so funny.
Well, that
Merry
includes
Christmas,
all
you
of
guys.
us in it.
Yeah.
So
No, I don't know if he's doing it on purpose, like an allusion to our
missing host.
Yes. Devoured Eagle says, oh, you mean the cartel sympathizer pen?
Sean Penn is awful.
Yeah, like, also, shut up. Like, why are you talking? Like, stop now. You know what I mean? Like, who is asking him? Do you think he's in this interview? Like, and they're like, so tell us about your new movie. And he's like, I think anyone who isn't vaccinated should stay home and not work.
See, I think that like he likes it. I think like at this point now he just enjoys it.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, is he?
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, it's like
That was extra.
it's like I just don't understand. Like, at what point did he decide that this was like his purpose in life? Did he feel like being an actor was too frivolous, and he's like, I've got to do these weird? He does like documentaries, kind of, right? That's why he was in
does.
Ukraine.
Yeah, he does. But I'll say, I mean, a lot of them, De Niro, as they got older, they all get weird and kind of outspoken. So
I don't
it is
know,
what it is.
man.
Let's do a couple more, and then we'll read the rest after our last. We got one more. We got two
Oh
more.
my gosh, Brett, you know what we should do
What?
after the show?
But
First
pick up
off,
the
I
money.
tried to get Brett to go see Various Relatives for Christmas as a Hallmark movie showing up on your doorstep gesture. He refused.
I have Bocus to take care of.
Yeah, you are Bocus's lead medical provider right now.
I am.
The other thing that I think we should do is watch the animated movie. I think it's 51 minutes. Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer. If anyone listening has seen this movie, I cannot tell you how like what a strong memory I have of multiple Christmases watching that with my cousins on like this one couch, like after you have like family
Yeah.
Christmas dinner. Like, it was the best. And if you haven't seen it, it's weird and worth it.
Okay.
Have you seen it?
I don't think I've seen it.
You know the song?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know the song. Like that was like,
I don't know
I
what
was
came
trying to
first. In my
distinguish if-
mind, this movie came first and the song got famous, but I'm not sure that's true.
Have you ever heard the song "The Night Santa Went Crazy" by Weird Al?
No.
It's an original.
There's so much to do after this.
It's about him. It's about him basically becoming like a North Pole version of a school shooter.
What?
He goes nuts.
Weird Al, you okay?
He goes nuts and takes out everybody at the North Pole. And,
Oh my
And
gosh.
Mrs. Claus gets the movie rights, and all of the elves end up working for the post office, and all of the reindeer end up in therapy.
Well, weird. We should listen
Not
to this
all
next.
not all of the reindeers.
Sometimes I feel like you're about to be like, just kidding. That's not real.
No,
But
it's
it's
real.
so detailed.
It is real.
Jedi Mind Trick 75 says, Merry Christmas all, chat and crew. Merry Christmas to you guys.
Merry Christmas.
I hope you guys are celebrating and stuff. It is weird that
I would love to know what everybody in the chat is doing for the holidays.
Yeah, I
what
would
are you
too.
guys doing? Are you guys spending time with family? Are you going to be out with, if you're married, you've got kids? Like, I'm not talking about like, are you going home to see relatives? I'm saying like, if you're married, like, do you have special traditions with your family?
I
Like,
have a couple friends who are getting married like come next year, and I have asked them like, are you guys going to start spending Christmas together? Because the whole time they've been dating, they might alternate Thanksgivings, but they're like, no, I do Christmas with my family. And I have this one couple friends, and they're like, we talked about it, like we don't think we're going to start spending Christmas together until we have kids, because then you don't want to be apart.
Yeah.
I don't know if they'll stick by it, but it is funny like how
that's
much
an interesting choice.
yeah, how much having children can like affect. I mean, I don't know what they'll do, but like it's a how you spend Christmas and how it changes. It really comes down to like when you get seriously coupled.
One more and then we'll move on.
Well, then it's a good one. Caper2X says, if I forgot, Merry Christmas, Brett and Hannah Claire.
Thank
Merry
you
Christmas
so
to
much.
You too.
All right, we're moving on. We got a couple more fun ones at the end here, guys. So this is the Law and Order version of the podcast. What is the things that you can get in trouble for in Hollywood these days? This says Netflix customers could go to prison for sharing their password. My goodness, can you imagine?
So dramatic, Netflix. Get it together.
Well, it's the UK. They arrest people for speech over there. They're kind of authoritarian over there. So it says it says sharing a password for a streaming service such as Netflix could land you in hot water in the United Kingdom. The country's intellectual property office issued guidance on December 19th that says accessing apps without paying a subscription is an infringement of copyright and you may be committing a crime. The IPO made a statement in an announcement about its joint campaign with Meta, formerly known as Facebook, to give guidance to people to avoid pirated and counterfeit goods online. Yes, avoid those evil pirated goods. Our matey, do not
How
sail
did
the
you
high
see that
seas.
one movie again?
I don't know. How did I see that one movie that one time? Here's my question. There was just a report in the news the other day about like people who got arrested for a guy got arrested for catcalling a woman under sexual harassment law, and they said it was an undercover sting. Like, I want a thing where
Who
like
was undercover? She dressed.
I guess she was dressed provocatively. But here's what I'm wondering. Like, what if one of your friends is secretly a cop and you go over to his house and you get a little too drunk, you stay the night. He's like, all right, man, you can crash on the couch, and you throw on his Netflix when you're going to bed. And he comes in the next morning and slaps the cuffs on you because you watched Netflix that wasn't on your account. Does it have more to do with the location? Is it about logging in at a place where that person...
Or is it like, you know, if you share a Netflix account with someone, right, and you're logged in on your laptop, and then they log in on their TV, and then one of you forgets to log out and signs into their, like, you know what I mean?
Look, I'm logged in on multiple devices in the same place.
Yeah.
What if I'm watching something on this TV but not on this TV?
I think, so Netflix started this push to be like, well, actually, you can't just infinitely share your password. We don't like it. Like, you should have come up with this a long time ago, and also stop. Like, that is some of the charm of your product, that people can be like, oh, look, my various friends and family are watching these other things. Like, I don't have any sympathy for them, and I think the fact that you would literally arrest, put someone in jail, or fine them for this is so stupid.
The other thing that they're talking about here isn't just that. They're talking about like hacked Fire Sticks, like people who have like devices, like a hacked Roku or something like that. But let's face it, that's not the funny part of this. The funny part is the idea that you log into a friend's. The funny thing is, I don't have a problem with people using my accounts. Just set up your own profile, because I don't want your shows infiltrating my watch list.
I get that.
Like,
did you ever see that tweet that was like some guy being like, for the last year, my ex-girlfriend has been using my Netflix because she set up her own profile as settings with a gear, and like he
That's
never
genius.
questioned it. genius and respectful. She didn't interrupt anything.
It's so not respectful if he's spending the money and she's no, not respectful. It also, but it does kind of add water to your thing. Yeah, the women don't want to pay for streaming services. They just leech off men, even if they're not dating them anymore.
Yeah, for sure. Look, I will say this. I have never taken anyone I'm dating's Netflix password. Like, once the relationship is over, it's done. But if they, like, for me, it functions like I don't own it and I don't have it. So, like, if we're watching TV, you should probably have a login because I'm providing nothing in that term. But it is funny that this is something that they're going to police. Like, this is the biggest crime you have to deal with?
Well, didn't we have
hacked Fire Sticks? I kind of understand because, like, that's more complicated than whatever else. But, like,
people would steal cable. They'd, like, jack your cable line from, like, if you lived in an apartment building, you had an adjoining wall. Somebody would, like, somehow get your cable.
Yeah.
But, like, think about, like, is this any different than loaning someone a CD? Or a record. Like, some people, like, I've had friends loan vinyl, like, to listen to something on vinyl. Like, you are not authorized to play this, not for secondary purchase or listen. Like, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can still sell things secondary, like secondhand. Like, it doesn't actually make sense to me.
I don't understand why this is the hill Netflix is trying to die on.
Well, they just launched their ad tier service and it came in under expectations, like
No
by like
way.
by like 20%. Like, they had to give money back. To advertisers because they didn't reach enough eyeballs.
That makes sense too. I mean, like, I don't understand why they thought ad tier. So are we just accepting that Netflix is officially struggling? Like, the competition is too hard? Because the thing is,
there's still leagues above.
All they have to do now, all the other streaming services like Peacock or Disney Plus, like, they just have to be like, run an ad that's like, you can use this on as many devices as you want. It's a direct shot at Netflix, and people will be like, yeah, I don't want to have to deal with Netflix and potentially, like, get in trouble with the government because I shared my password with my brother. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It makes them such an easy target. Like, how can they possibly make enough money to justify this stupid rule?
It's also funny too because fast free ad supported tiers becoming the most common. Like, a lot of the shows that I love are now all being pushed to, because they're old, are being pushed to fast.
Yeah, I
tiers.
don't like anything though.
I hate, like, honestly, Peacock. I watch more Peacock now than any, like, I never thought I would get Peacock. I watch more of that platform now than any
because
of the
they have
ones,
the ad.
Because they have a lot of the shows that would have normally ended up on ad tier are on that platform. I'm rewatching Eureka, Covert Affairs, Royal Pains.
Royal Pains is so good.
Incredible.
Brett and I have the same taste in television.
Incredible.
I think.
But, like, a lot of that stuff, like a lot of those shows that I love, like Lost Girl, you can't find it on anything other than the CW app.
Yeah.
I'm not using the CW app. Not in a million years.
I also feel like ads don't bother me that much because I, like, when in the Wild West days of streaming, I don't know if you remember this, Brett, but it was like Hulu was the big one, right? Netflix was still on DVDs. Hulu started streaming. They had ads and, like, random shows were on it, not everything. And then also you could go to the CW homepage and they would play, like, this is how I watched Gilmore Girls initially.
Yeah.
Like, they
would
would post, like,
watch, like, Arrow when Arrow was in
right
in the early
it was like not even a great, like, player. They would post
it would, like, restart if you tried to skip forward
it was like done.
Yep.
They would post like 3 episodes a week, and so, like, I slowly would work. I was only allowed to use like I wasn't allowed to watch TV during the school week, so, like, I would only watch it like Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday night, and, like, that's how I made it through like seasons of Gilmore Girls.
And they would only keep 5 episodes at a time and then recycle from the beginning.
Or Pushing Daisies. Pushing Daisies was available on Hulu, and I remember, like, waiting for it to buffer at certain points because it wasn't working. Like, I can suffer through not having it, and I can also suffer through not paying for it and using the ad tier. People who are paying for it aren't gonna, like, want to put up with the annoyance of, like, no, you can't use it. Like, if you're paying for a product, why can't you use it as much as you want?
I found a bunch of shows that I like that are on the ad-supported tiers, and I'm like, is there a non-ad-supported version of your non-ad-supported tier? Can I pay to get rid of them? And you cannot.
Yeah,
Like,
that's interesting.
Like, there's a lot of shows that I love that you just can't. I now have to either Numbers. I love the show Numbers from, like, 2000.
I've never heard of it.
It was a show about, like, solving crime through math. It was extremely cheesy. David Krumholtz.
Is it like an edutainment kind of show?
No. Actually, it's super based. Like, they talk. There's a
What is
the producer of the show was, like, a mathematician, and, like, there's an episode about sending, like, small loans to to Africa, and like somebody's like, and that works, and he goes, why are capitalists always surprised that capitalism works?
That's
Based
so
for
funny.
like
Wait, now I want to watch this.
it's it was like David Krumholtz.
I'd like to be vicariously good at math for other people.
David Krumholtz was the elf in the Santa Claus, and then it's Rob Moreau. Great show, but like
Okay.
Judd Hirsch plays their dad because
What?
Judd Hirsch plays everyone's dad,
And it's like so not well known that they're like, we're gonna charge for this.
Well, no, it was on from like 2006 to 2010, so it's just old now. So it's like are there many people other than me that really, really want this show so bad that they'll pay for a streaming service?
But they
for
can
it?
get a couple ad views by putting it on
Exactly.
there.
Like, or you can buy it on Amazon, which I'm not going to do. I'm not going to pay for digital content. So, beyond this, we have one more, and that is that. I love this because Marvel's screwed. So a court has ruled that movie studios can now be sued for false advertising. This was actually something that we covered early on. It was based on this very specific lawsuit from 2019 from a film called Yesterday. And what happened is basically the movie got sued because there was clips of Ana de Armas in the trailer, and there is no Ana de Armas in the movie. Her scenes got cut, and these two people are suing the movie studio. $3.99 they paid to see the movie. They're suing for $5 million in damages. Make your bag, King.
This is so crazy. It's also one of these things where, like, if you have the money to cover the legal fees, like, why wouldn't you shoot your shot? You know what I mean? Like, I don't really care that much, and it seems a little ridiculous.
It's absolutely ridiculous.
On the other hand, like, hold them accountable, I guess. Like, that's how, I mean, in a lot of civil, in respect civilly, like, by being like, hey, you can't just say you're producing something and not. Have you ever watched a trailer that's like, they show you the trailer for the movie and it's like, that's not what the movie's about at all?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well,
I can never decide if that's because the trailers
Jennifer's Body. They didn't know how to. They had no idea how to market Jennifer's Body.
Yeah, or About Time, if you've ever seen that movie. Like, it's a really good movie. I highly recommend. The trailer makes it seem like it's a rom-com, and it is, but it's not. And so very different from just literally being like, this person's in it, and then cutting all their scenes and not saying anything.
Well, Marvel is notorious for this. Like, there are like they would specifically include shots in the trailers that aren't in the movie to misdirect people. So, like, there are shots in the Infinity War.
But is that false advertising, or is that like Easter eggs?
It's like that's what I'm saying. It's like, so there are shots in the Infinity War trailer that people were pissed weren't in the actual movie. So the statement here, it says, Universal sought to throw out the lawsuit, arguing that movie trailers are entitled to broad protection under the First Amendment. They argued that the trailer is an artistic, expressive work that tells this. I'm sorry, I just got a message here. That tells the story conveying the theme of the movie, and thus should be considered non-commercial speech. But Wilson, I guess that's the judge on the case, says he rejected that argument, finding that a trailer is commercial speech and is subject to California false advertising law under the state. Unbelievable.
I don't know. I
love it.
Suing for like what you spent $7 on tickets and now you're suing for $5 million. Like,
not even that, like $3.99 to buy it digitally, and now they're suing for $5 million.
That's crazy. They're paying more in legal fees than they are to see the actual movie.
Like they're they're gonna spend more fighting this in court.
Yeah, it's gonna be crazy. I mean, I assume that will come out of like, hopefully some law firm is like, we're gonna take this pro bono and we're just gonna take a cut of whatever you guys make.
Yeah.
But I think there is something to be said because false advertising is real. There's a lawsuit going on in Florida, and I haven't followed it that closely, but there were a bunch of people suing. Like, there was like a class action lawsuit brought against Burger King, and reading through it, I covered it for the site, was so funny because they're suing for false advertising, and they're like,
under what grounds?
Okay, they're saying that the burgers are depicted in a way that is not real.
Well, that's
like,
true.
It's burgers and a couple other things, but they're saying like they're represented as 50% more meat than they actually have. They are showing that they have toppings that they don't really put on them. The amount of lettuce that they put on the burgers, like it's sort of. And they went through and they're like, this began because you have to be specific. You can't just be like, this didn't look like his picture and I don't like it. And so they're like, in 2006, they started showing advertising that showed burgers to scale to be this size and compared to what you get at the thing. Reading this class action lawsuit was so funny because it's like pictures of Burger King's ads, pictures someone took at the drive-thru, right? And who is that guy on YouTube who does like is it like the Morning Report or something? He does like, he reviews like fast food stuff.
Sounds like there's a guy on Instagram that does that.
He's like a blonde guy. I think he's in Florida.
Actor.
Like people will know who this is. He's mentioned in the lawsuit as someone who is like referenced as sort of like an authority on fast food and like
good work if you can get it.
Right. It's amazing. And like they will point out that like this is a consistent pattern. Like I think we come to expect advertisements to be false, and we're cynical as a society. But like, in some ways, there's like something about this. I'm like, yeah, underdogs, like make them pay, make them know that this is unacceptable.
That was a Dane Cook bit where he goes, I don't know who takes the pictures of the fries at Burger King. They're fantastic. He's like, they're just jumping out of the case.
Yeah.
It's like it's a glamour shot. They're
yeah.
just, mwah.
Well, and there are rules around like how much touching up of anything, but especially food photography you can do. Like sometimes I've read about this in like cookbooks and stuff. Yeah. Like they'll cut out like cardboard or styrofoam
put it
to like
under
to make it look fluffy or like bigger.
With pancakes, they put pieces underneath each of the pancakes to make it stick out. With they put creamer like instead of milk and stuff like that. They've ruled against it. Like there's certain things you can't do anymore. To fake what something looks like.
Right, because you're misrepresenting the product. And in this case, like if you were Anna de Armas, is that who it was?
Yeah, it was Anna de
Your
Armas.
biggest fan in the whole world, and you would only see this movie because she's in it and she's not. Like, yes, you were falsely advertised to.
I love it.
I think it's, I mean, again, like crazy, but also I think I'm on, because normally when you hear people like say like, these people spent $2 and now they want $10 million in damages. Like I start to be like, oh my gosh, people are greedy.
It's the emotional damage. He's been emotionally scarred.
But on the other hand, like, I don't know. They said she was in it. She's not in it. Like, you have a case, in my opinion. I never went to law school, but I'd like to pretend I have a legal opinion.
It's funny because it says the ruling obviously presents a problem for the comic book genre in particular, as the industry will often use vague deception in their trailers in order to throw fans off the scent of the plot, which they do for the purpose of making sure that you don't see everything that's in the movie, or to push back against, like, if you don't want to know the ending. I mean, think about movies like the Scream franchise, which there are whole clips in the Scream trailers, like lines. There's like a line in the first Scream trailer from the one with Nev Campbell and Skeet Ulrich, where it says, "It's time, girlfriend," and that line's never in the movie. Like, there's lines are just like completely.
But then also,
missed.
like, I don't know what the schedule is for production. Like, if you were a judge, would there be any grace for like with the Amber Heard, right? When she got cut from Aquaman, or like significantly reduced. If they showed a scene that she filmed and it made it into the trailer, then they cut her back. They don't release a different trailer, and they obviously can't pull back the one they put out. Is that false advertising? Because she's still in the movie, but that scene isn't in it. Yep. Like, I am actually curious about where the lines are.
We'll have to see. Well, this could go forward. We'll have to see. All right, we got some super chats.
Yeah. Okay. Not Alan Rogers says, Twitter dark mode. Please, God, I'm begging you.
Maybe in the future, yeah. I didn't have it on dark mode in here.
Oh.
I don't really use Twitter.
You noob.
I don't
use. Is that the correct use of that word?
I mean, I don't use Twitter on ever, other than like I sometimes have to use it on my phone for like stuff for work, and I hate it. I hate Twitter.
I'm not a Twitter personality. I want to try on some fronts, because like I do repost my articles, and so like I do feel like I appreciate when people react to it, and I want to like be engaging in some way, but like I just like to keep my thoughts to myself, I guess. Which doesn't make sense, because I'm on this podcast being like, here's my legal opinion.
Well, no, that's the same thing for me. Like, I love sharing my opinions here. I don't want to, because there's context here.
Yeah.
Like and you're talking to people that are here to listen to the whole thing. Tweet where you tweet one thing and then somebody gives it the worst interpretation they could ever give anything.
Yeah.
Like, I have a Twitter account that doesn't follow like no followers. It's just there to the background is a picture of Bocus.
That's funny.
But like I don't use it. Yeah. It's not under my name or anything.
That's how mine started, because it was just like there are certain press releases and stuff that come through on Twitter, and like
that you have
to write about them. I have to get to them, but like I think I said nothing for like a whole year on Twitter, and then eventually was like, don't know, I'm writing some interesting stuff. Maybe people want to find it.
It's too evil for me.
Yeah.
People are too angry all the time.
I will say, sorry, I usually do this at the end, but the Timcast News Twitter at Timcast News is very, very close to hitting 40,000 subscribers, and we would really like to do that by Christmas.
Let's do it.
So if you guys feel like following it, it's very cool. Convincing Reality says Sean Penn clearly recognizes the Oscar-worthy performance Zelensky has treated us to for what it is. Or he's entirely a narcissistic egomaniac. Do you think they met each other and were like, you think you're cool? I'm cooler than you are. You know what I mean?
I think that Sean Penn's like, that's a cool green shirt. Now he wears like green long sleeve shirts. It's like he's going to be sponsored by the color forest green.
I know Ukraine is a controversial topic, but I will say this guy did a whole Vogue photo shoot where his wife was all glam and he wore his pseudo army fatigues. Then he got noticed that he was coming to the U.S. to address Congress and still didn't pack a suit.
Nope.
Like, you're not actually in a combat zone.
It's a costume.
That feels disrespectful to people who are fighting on the front lines of that conflict. You know what I mean?
I mean, it's cooler if he actually just has like a condition where he just loves that color and can't wear anything else.
You could get a custom-made suit. Like, I don't understand what's
that
happening.
That would be some drip. Did you see that Jordan Peterson double-colored suit? The icy suit?
No, I haven't seen it.
It's maroon and blue.
I have not seen it.
It's incredible.
But I will Google it after this. Okay, Charlie Red says, I got a kick out of high school.
I got kicked out of
high school for a prank. Bad. I never got invited even though I graduated. I don't care because I moved on. People will abandon you. Forget about it.
Yeah, especially like something like that. Like there's no reason to go back if it doesn't feel like it played a huge role in your life, right? Like in fact that moment seems like that would have been like being kicked out but still graduating feels like that would have been a significant part of your life, but that goes to the contrary of wanting to go to your
I mean, like, don't go somewhere you don't want to be, right? But I just mean, like, if you're in your hometown, they're having your high school reunion, you've got nothing going on tonight, go for 15 minutes. If you see someone you like, cool. If you don't, leave. Like, I feel like you never know, and if you're considering going, you probably should just try it. I don't know. Let's see. Am I on
Bad App?
Oh man, Bad App. Hello. Just popping in to say Merry Christmas. I love y'all. Aww.
Thank you. Also, we need to ask, have you been cheating on us with Brett Cooper?
Yeah.
Like, the chat has been telling me that you've been cheating on us with Brett Cooper. Look, I understand this relationship has been going on for a while. It's work. You know, it's not as fresh as it used to be. Things are stale.
The honeymoon period is over.
With Brett Cooper, it's fresh and exciting and new. But I ask you, don't give up on us just yet.
We all groan about Bad App, but then when he shows eyes for someone else, we're like, wait, what about us? Devoured Eagle 35 says, thank you for your work, you guys, with a bunch of Christmas, a Santa, a gift, a snowman, a Christmas tree. Merry Christmas, star.
Thank you
Merry
so much.
Merry Christmas to you guys. Oh, this is like a nice, I'm feeling the vibes today.
They're great vibes
when Brett was like, hey, can you come on today? Mary's got to be with family. I was like, sure, as long as it's a Christmas eccentric episode.
Well, this is Christmas. It's been very Christmassy.
It's been super Christmassy. It's not our topic.
It's just not green and red.
That's okay. There are lots of ways to celebrate Christmas. Can I read Bad App's next one?
That is, I mean, if you want to. I leave this up to Mary's discretion.
Okay, Bad App says, is it called mistletoe when Santa wears pants too tight for his package? And I feel like we'd have to ask a tailor. You know what I mean? Like, we'd have to be like, how are you guys doing? This is just a question from Santa's fans, specifically Bad App. Devoured Ego says, Hannah is dating for the Netflix and Disney Plus. I don't know what Hannah's doing. Hannah Claire is not doing that. I recognize that if I'm not willing to pay for it myself, I can't expect anyone else to.
That's fair.
But if you have it, like, that's cool. Otherwise, the thing is, like, then you just end up going to like the one last movie rental place in your state. Yeah. And that is also fun.
It's kind of fascinating. We were talking about like how they have video rentals still up in like the Appalachian
area.
I
was telling you about this because there are lots of parts, especially of like, I'm sure true in Pennsylvania or Kentucky, but in West Virginia, where the internet service isn't consistent or whatever. So like you come to town, you rent your 5 movies for the week, you go back. Like that also means that you're not hooked on your phone all night. And like I
it's
find
that good for you in some way.
It's got to be really good for you in some way. The dangers is when you can't call 911 because you don't have any cell service. But
the other one is like, it's like a lot of those areas you'll notice that Redbox is still a thing. Mm-hmm. Like there's more Redboxes there than there would be in other places.
Yeah, for sure. Potatoes for Seamus says, not sure if it's Hannah Claire and her Christmas cheer or all the Xmas love going around off in the chat, but it's really helping my sinus infection. Keep up the love.
Feel better, man.
Yeah, feel better.
Like,
Sinus infections are the worst.
he mentioned earlier that he wasn't feeling well. So
Oh, that's the worst.
Feel better.
Yeah. And guys, I'm really appreciating all the Christmas wishes. I love Christmas, and I hope you guys, no matter what you're doing, are going to have a good one. Carnell says...
Carnell.
Carnell.
I don't know.
I want to read it like caramel, but with an N.
Caramel.
Carnell. All hail to the chat. Merry Christmas, Brett and Hannah Claire. Can I get a Hail Mary in the chat for our PCC Ghost Girl?
I will say Hail Mary because Mary would not want to say Hail Mary because it feels a little bit blasphemous to her.
It's like when you're not supposed to drink a toast to yourself.
Yes. In honor of Mary, we Hail Mary today.
Yeah. 1,000 foot...
Ooh.
Excuse me. 1,000 Foot Deep End says, Hannah Claire, you may be thinking of The Bishop's Wife with Cary Grant. Yes, I definitely am. In Were No Angels, Bogart plays an escaped Devil's Island convict in 1895. So I'm clearly thinking of a different movie.
Okay.
The Bishop's Wife is a Christmas movie, but it's kind of a weird one.
Why?
I don't know. It's an old movie. It's like not... there's something kind of down about it. I don't know. I remember watching it being like, huh, interesting. It's the way It's a Wonderful Life we think of it as a Christmas movie because there's like a big Christmas scene at the end.
Yeah.
But it actually wasn't released originally as a Christmas movie. Like it was just a movie. It did poorly, and so it fell into like fair use, and then they started playing it.
Oh,
that's what someone told me
interesting. I didn't
recently.
know that. You know, honestly, my favorite piece of Christmas media is, this is gonna be really funny. There's a Cheerios commercial from like the 80s.
Okay, here we go.
With Scrooge. And he eats Cheerios. He's being Scrooge, and then the little bee comes in and he eats Cheerios and he smiles for the first time in many years.
That's your favorite Christmas?
That's my favorite piece of Christmas media.
Wait, I haven't seen this commercial and I want to find it.
See if I can find it.
Yes, please do.
Go to the next chat and I will look for it.
Okay. Caber2X says, HCB, give up and go to law school. We need your mind. I appreciate that.
Well,
Do I have to take the
consider
LSAT?
it? Would you consider it?
Yeah. I've always thought about going to law school. I mean, I really love what I do now. I'm so grateful to be with Timcast. And I also, like, you can get a master's in legal studies, whatever else. I kind of think higher education is a scam. Like, I think in some ways you are...
Outside of being a lawyer or a doctor.
Well, and, like, even with law school, like, there's all kinds of, like, weird corruption that goes into admissions. But in some ways, I just wish I could, like, sit in on legal classes, like audit them. Yeah, you could do that. I found the commercial. Okay, let's see.
We're going to play it. Even if we get copyrighted, I don't even care. Well, I'll delete this
Brett's
part later.
Christmas present to himself.
This is my Christmas present to myself. Here we go, guys. This is...
Brett's favorite Christmas moment.
Who's there?
The taste of nuts and honey, Mr. Scrooge.
Can they see it?
Better things to do.
But Mr. Scrooge, Honey Nut Cheerios, it's Christmas.
My customary gruel will suffice, thank you.
Yeah, but Honey Nut Cheerios blends golden honey and crunchy nuts.
I said, did you say honey and nuts?
Merry Christmas, Mr. Scrooge.
It's the face at the end.
I'm getting Honey Nut Cheerios now.
Aren't you?
Amazing.
Like, it works.
It totally works. And it's not like overdone.
I love that commercial to this day.
That is such a good commercial.
So good.
That's amazing. It's also like Christmassy without it being like too aggressive. Like I get that a lot of people celebrate different holidays this time of year, but like that's a story. Like I really like that.
It's a memory of a time when the country felt more united. Like everyone didn't celebrate Christmas, but it certainly felt that way.
Yeah, and like even if you don't celebrate Christmas, like these kind of parable type tales about like doing good and being generous, like they still work.
It was the face. It's the guy's face when he's like
he's well cast. His expression is good.
Very good.
Let's see. Bad App says, if you can sue Burger King for false advertising, then you should be able to sue your Tinder date.
Have you ever seen the
good question.
There's a great like TikTok of like it's like a woman like they put a ruler next to their door. They're like measuring men who say they're over 6 feet.
Oh yeah,
on
it's like
Tinder.
the kind that you see in like convenience stores.
Yep.
So like if you get robbed, you can be like they're about this height.
And then it cuts to a guy putting a scale in front of his door.
Look, but I wouldn't think a scale so much as like makeup, right? Like I'm not particularly good at doing my makeup, but there are some girls who can really like make themselves
artists.
look
Like they're different people.
Yeah, and they can really do it. And like it's not that they look bad, but like when you see them without makeup, I could imagine that would be unexpected.
Yeah.
Matt Gringell says, I wish you a Merry Christmas. Feliz Navidad.
Thank you.
Back at you,
Merry
pal.
Christmas. Also, another favorite commercial of mine, Taco John's holiday commercials that had the Feliz Navidad song.
That's amazing. I don't know what Taco John's is. Is this like a regional chain?
It's like no, I mean I don't know about regional, but it's like Taco Bell, but like not like a little bit better. Like they got potato olays. Potato olays are incredible.
I've never
like
heard
little,
of this.
like basically little potatoes. But the thing is, like, it's so American to have so much nostalgia and love for a time based on commercial products that are sold to you. Like, I watched that Honey Nut Cheerios commercial. I don't give a crap about Honey Nut Cheerios, but my God, do I love my childhood thinking about back to it.
Yeah.
I mean, I ate plenty of Honey Nut Cheerios as a kid, I'm sure. But like, did I eat them at that time because I saw the commercial? No, I just love the commercial. But it's all tied to a product that's been sold to you. That's my argument for capitalism. If somebody's ever like, why is capitalism good? I just played that commercial.
I feel like that's good. Or like they should have it in like advertising classes, right? Like It's nice. It's not super aggressive. And it just like sends a very simple message. It's very sweet. Okay. Gray Jedi Outcast says, unrelated, but I've been watching Young Sheldon and it's actually a lot better than I thought. So far reminds me of a 90s family show.
I've heard good things about Young Sheldon. It's not one that I've not looked into. Though, speaking of the 90s shows, has anyone looked into they're making That 90s Show?
They are?
It's a That 70s
They
show.
tried to make a That 80s show after that.
I think they're
70s
making
show, right?
That 90s show now.
90s are so trendy. They're so back. I feel like that's hard. I actually really liked That 70s show. I watched it like way, way, way after it came out. And
Big
stuff
Danny
like that,
Masterson fan.
Well, his character is cool. Obviously, it's controversial. He didn't get convicted. His case got thrown out, but he is a Scientologist, which I am generally skeptical of. Sorry, Scientology.
Well, he's also like on trial for like.
No, his case got dismissed.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, it was a whole thing.
Of course.
It got like.
Oh yeah,
it was a mistrial.
Yeah,
it was a mistrial.
okay, yep. That's Scientology. Got him off, I'm sure.
Yeah. Devoured Eagle.
Game over. It says.
Game over. That's interesting.
Thank you.
He's maybe done with Christmas. Luis Aguilera says, Feliz Nappy Dad, Hannah Claire and Brett.
Please, Snappy Dad.
It's accommodating for my pronunciation skills. Appaloosa, maybe? 144 says, about Jay Peterson's suit. Some company gave him 12, one for each rule. The red and blue one is heaven and hell. Blue is the sheeple, red is gold.
Wow.
That is fascinating.
That is amazing.
Also, what is this company? I
Like,
want to direct all the men in my family to get stuff from them.
I literally, I was like, when I saw that picture, I posted about it. I said, who is Jordan Peterson's drip advisor? Oh my God, look at this. Like, that is bold.
I want to see it
you
now.
look at the pictures of him when he was a professor, and he's like very like, he
looks like an academic, yeah.
haphazardly dressed. It's been a long. He's
like clearly been researching something
business.
in the library.
He's wearing a suit with tennis shoes, as you would be wont to do there. Couple more.
Let's see. 1,000 Foot Deep End says, as a homeschool grad, every family get together as a school reunion.
There you go.
Solid.
Hey, perfect.
But I also feel like if you went to homeschool, like you probably were involved in like camps or you did other things.
Yeah.
Like there are things that wouldn't have reunions where there are people that'd be interested in being like, hey, what are you up to now? Yep. Bad App says LMAFO. Do you pronounce that word or you say the letters?
I just say LMAF. Oh, I say laughing my effing. I don't know. I think I would just say
what's
LMAF.
the correct thing to do here? Cool hip person.
I am not cool.
Anyways, Bad App doesn't know who Brett Cooper is, only that you both have the same name, and apparently she's a, quote, smoke show. I'm no cheater.
Okay, well, thank you. I feel so much more reaffirmed and comfortable in my showhood here.
Yeah, but then after this, there's a bunch of like, Brett Cooper's great. Brett Cooper has an awesome personality. You know what Brett has an awesome personality? Brett Dasovich.
That's right.
Okay. And then,
I don't know if we need to say the first part of that.
Bad App likes Garth Brooks.
Yes,
and I'm
we'll
good
say
with the
that.
rest of that.
Look, also like, does anybody ever like laugh at how like all the country songs from like right after 9/11 that were just very clearly propaganda?
Or like there have been different, like after Haiti had the earthquake and they made some album.
So not just I talked about that the other day. I said, so not only did like that was like the dying bastion of our media is like We Are the World.
Yeah.
Everyone got around to We Are the World, even though it was cheesy, but everyone understands now that all of the people that sing that song are all vain and egotistical, and they don't actually care.
Yeah.
Like Canada had their own version for Haiti.
What?
Like, yeah,
They're too good for that one where all the rest of us are in?
They had their own version. Was it? I forget the name of the song, but like they had their own version where they got all Canadian artists to get together and sing one. Oh, it's called Waving
we
Flag.
love some nationalism. Good times.
Waving Flag was the name of the song by Kanan. So it's like they did their own version. And then All for Haiti, but it's all like that was the original virtue signal.
Mm-hmm.
A huge bunch of rich celebrities donating their time for an afternoon so they can seem really, really like they're important, and they hold the headphone with one ear because it's not
They're,
cool
like,
to.
grooving.
Yeah. So vain, self-entitled. That's the world we lived in at that time. But that's not important.
I get that like sometimes there are things that people feel like they want to do something and they don't know what to do, but
Yeah.
like I don't know.
And he's like, I don't want to donate to charity because if I donate to charity, do I know the money's actually going to where it needs to go?
That's
It
hard.
is
But you
what
do
it
want
is.
to do something.
All right. Hannah Claire, thank you so much.
Hey, thank you for having me.
And Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you too, Brett, and to guys, all of you in the chat. It has been so fun to be with you today, and I really, guys, hop a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year if I don't see you before then.
We say Merry Christmas here. There is no war on Christmas here at Timcast Media.
If you're celebrating something else, I hope that's good too.
Exactly.
But because I celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas to you guys.
Let everyone know where they can find you.
Okay. You can find me on Instagram at hannahclaire.b. You can find me on Twitter at HC Brimolo. You can find me on timcast.com. Click on the read tab. You can see all the articles that I'm doing, our journalists are doing. Shane Cashman's got some cool stuff coming up. You should, I know I already said this, but you should follow Timcast News if you're on Twitter. All of our stuff comes up there, and we're getting so close to 40,000 subscribers. It would be cool to hit that before Christmas. And I can't think of anything else. But yeah, thanks again for having me. It's been a ball.
Thank you. Guys, before we go, I just want to thank you all again for joining us today. Again, it means the world to me that you come out, hang out every day, join us for this show. Merry Christmas to each and every one of you. Happy holidays if you celebrate something else. If you could, like this video, leave comments on this video, subscribe to this channel if you are not already. Help the show grow. It is an honor to be here and do this with you guys. If you want to follow me, you can follow me on Instagram at Brett Dasovic. For the show, we are here Monday through Friday. Most weeks, we will not be on air tomorrow. We are taking the day off tomorrow and Monday for the holidays, but normally Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That is noon Pacific. We are also on Amazon Music, Apple Podcast, Pandora, and Spotify if you like to listen to the podcast rather than watch. If you'd like to follow the show on social media, we are on Twitter at popculture_show, Facebook and TikTok at Pop Culture Crisis, and on Instagram at Pop Culture Crisis Pod. We will be back with another episode on Tuesday. We'll see you then, guys. Later.
Bye.